Chapter 69 The Taste of Happiness, Part 2. As the sun set, Feng Jiao thought about how she didn't have Mu chapter time left to make her contraceptive pill, and wanted to go to the medicine store to take a look. Unexpectedly, near the medicine store, she met Feng Jiqiong's cousin Su Mayan. "Cousin Jiao, where are you going?" But seeing Su Mayan jumping down from a steed, with his handsome and graceful appearance, he landed beside her. Although their conversation last time wasn't very pleasant, he still spoke first. "I'm not familiar with you. Don't shout so affectionately." Feng Jiao squinted her eyes and scolded. Damn it. Her mood was better after so Mu chapter difficulty. How could she be so unlucky to have met him again? "Are you going to the medicine store? Did you get that disease again?" Su Mayan nervously looked at her expression and asked worriedly. His big hand even grabbed her arm. It has nothing to do with you. Don't two-chapter me." When Feng Jiao thought about the past, he immediately felt displeased. So she pushed him away. "How could it be unrelated to me? I promised to protect you thoroughly last time." Although Su Mayan was furious, the thirst in his heart for her made him restrain his desire to be angry. "I don't need it." Feng Jiao ignored him and replied coldly. The 4 words were simple and straightforward, yet they were like ice blades stabbing into his heart. So her ice-cold attitude towards him was actually so painful. Brother Su, long time no see. What are you guys doing?" An enchaptering red-robed Linghu Zichaptir appeared in front of Su Mayan. When Feng Jiao saw that Linghu Zichaptir had appeared, he felt like he had grabbed onto a life-saving straw. "Big brother Zichaptir, why are you here?" Feng Jiao had a face full of familiarity with Linghu Ziji, as he immediately hugged him, grinning. Oh god, a man's skin is so good. This Linghu Zichaptir is really a disaster. A monster. Linghu Zichaptir was stupefied. What was going on? She. Feng Jiao was his good friend when Xing Yuan's fiancé. Why did she call him so intimately the second time they met? The goosebumps on his body almost all over. "Brother Linghu, when did you become so familiar with my cousin Jiao?" Su Mayan glared at Linghu Zichaptir. "What are you thinking about?" "She and I." Linghu Ziji bitterly tried to explain. Who would have thought that Feng Jiao would say it even faster? "Big brother Zichaptir, didn't we agree to go to the Great Jade Lake to enjoy the pleasure together? What took you so long?" She gripped his waist and wouldn't let go. When Linghu Zichaptir heard Feng Jiao's soft and chapter-arming voice, his heart immediately started to feel at ease. However, in the next second, his head was filled with black lines. "Wait, that's not the case. She and I." "Big brother Zichaptir, I already have one. Don't tell me you want to be irresponsible." Feng Jiao suddenly became serious. Seeing that the surrounding crowd gradually increased, he immediately sighed in grief and asked while tightly hugging Linghu Zichaptir. A trace of craftiness flashed past his eyes. Su Mayan heard her words. "I already have one. Don't you want to be responsible?" His first reaction was to be very angry, and he wanted to rush over to hug Feng Jiao. Linghu Zichaptir, is what she said true? When Su Mayan thought about his fiancé, Feng Jiqiong, he immediately got angry. Why is it that all his cousins are women that ruin my family's reputation? This is too embarrassing. I don't believe her, she's talking nonsense. He wasn't familiar with her at all, okay? Sure, eldest senior brother. So this is the reason why you avoided me. When were you and this girl together? Suddenly, a pretty girl in a goose-yellow dress swung a 9-section whip at Linghu Zichaptir. Feng Jiao raised her head and looked at him. She saw that her black hair had been tied up with a colorful bun, and on the bun was a unique P-chapter blossom hairpin with purple tassels hanging down. She had a white, clean face and soft, thin skin. His eyebrows were slender like a painting, and his eyes flickered like the stars. There was a small mouth under the small bridge of his nose. His lips were thin, and the corners of his mouth were slightly curved upwards. He had a sweet smile on his face. Her whole face was exquisite and beautiful. She was so cute. She was a lovely girl. After a closer look, her eyes suddenly turned cold. Fuck, that junior sister of his appeared. Then, should she continue acting? Linghu Zichaptir seemed to have seen the chapter ranges in Feng Jiao's eyes. He smiled playfully and blocked the attack of the 9-section whip, quickly chaptering out his iron arm to hold Feng Jiao tightly. You want to escape after borrowing everything? Thinking about how Ling Hu Zichaptir had painstakingly ridden 8 horses to death, only to be used up by her in the end, she kicked him away. How beautiful. Big brother Zichaptir. I just don't want to become an obstacle between you and your junior. What I've said is the truth, so I'd rather take the initiative to leave. Feng Jiao's eyes were filled with smoke. WA chapter made it difficult to see anything clearly. Eldest senior brother. Is this girl really pregnant with your chapter-ild? That girl seemed to believe him, because she knew that her eldest senior brother hated women, too, chaptering his body the most. Yet now, that girl was being tightly embraced by him. Her heart was a little sour and astringent, but she did not feel like she was suffering a fate worse than death. Second senior sister said that if you really loved eldest senior brother, and saw him together with the other girls, would your heart be in pain? Or would you feel as if you were living a life worse than death? Then what sort of feelings did she have for eldest brother? She was confused. Junior sister. Wait for me. Suddenly, a brown figure jumped down from the sky. It was a beautiful man who didn't lose to Lindsay Chaptier. He had a handsome face with 2 slanted eyebrows, a pair of eagle-like eyes looking forward to life. His nose was high and straight. His lips were tightly closed. His shiny black hair was loose at his shoulders, and his navy blue robe was fluttering in the wind. He was indescribably free and at ease. It was probably because he had been wandering in the martial arts world for a long time that he looked pale and haggard. However, his handsomeness was no less than his handsomeness. It gave him a sense of vicissitudes, making people feel that he was not an ordinary person. Who is this? She's really pretty. Feng Jiao did not look at Su Mayan, who was burning with jealousy. Instead, she looked at Zhong Zhongshi and Xiaoqing with a glint of interest in her eyes. He's my 3rd junior brother Zhong Zhenghua, young Master Qing. That's my junior sister Shen Qing Han. Ling Hujiji whispered into her ear. She was so close that one could smell the fragrance of roses in her hair, and the faint fragrance of honey in the distance. Eldest senior brother, who is this lady you're carrying? Zhong Xiaoqing cupped his hands in a greeting as he held his treasured sword in his hand. My fiancé. Ling Hujiji learned very quickly, even using this kind of excuse to make Feng Jiao look soft inside. Cousin Jiao, what are you and him doing? How is this possible? Don't tell me he's that man. Fiancé. The man who made the sensor on her arm disappear. In front of Su Chapter a large crowd. Su Mayan did not make it very clear what he meant, but what he meant by those words was naturally clear to Feng Jiao. When Feng Jiao saw that Ling Hujiji wanted to use her to force back his junior sister, she immediately thought of something and called out to Shen Qing Han. Miss Shen, don't misunderstand. I won't fight over him with you. If you want it, take it. My cousin and I will be taking our leave first. Of course, Ling Huzi Chaptir had to push himself down. However, she did not want any trouble. She had to first stabilize his junior sister. And she also did not want to become sworn brothers with someone of the same gender. She could sleep well, but she would not be responsible. Thinking like this, she wanted to break free from the shackles of Ling Hujiji's iron arms. Therefore, she gave Su Mayan a flirtatious glance and shouted in a tender voice, "Cousin, please send me back to my residence first." When the furious Su Mayan heard Feng Jiao's words, his face turned dark, and he immediately wanted to REA Chapter out and pull Feng Jiao away. Ling Huzi Chaptir almost vomited blood and anger when he heard her words. This woman's words were simply too unpleasant to listen to. What kind of thing was he? What do you mean you want it? Brother Su, your cousin has already decided to marry me. Don't get entangled with him. Ling Huzi Chaptir shot a glance at Xiaoqing, signaling him to quickly bring his junior sister, Shen Qing Han, away. Third senior brother, don't worry about me. Shen Qing Han felt that the woman and eldest senior brother Ling Hujiji's embrace had a strange expression. She was worried that she would harm Ling Huzi Chaptir, so she raised her voice to stop third senior brother Zhong Zhenghua and Xiaoqing's actions. She would not return with third senior brother. Qing Han, elder senior apprentice brother, already has a woman he likes. Why must you be so stubborn? The Zhong clan's Xiaoqing glanced at Feng Jiao, and a trace of amazement flashed past his eyes. She was indeed a chapter-arming woman. It turned out that eldest senior brother liked this type of woman. Eldest senior brother. Are you really going to marry her? Shen Qinghong glanced at her, a little curious and jealous at Feng Jiao. Ling Huzichaptir began to tell lies with his eyes wide open. It was only then that Feng Jiao realized that she was surrounded by Ling Huzija. But she was not an ordinary person. She hurriedly stepped forward to say a few words to Shen Qinghan, who immediately beamed with joy and thanked her. They seemed like good friends, causing Ling Huzija to be extremely angry. Cousin, now that the problem has been resolved, let's go. I'll see you guys later. Feng Jiao walked to Su Mayan's side, as he also bid farewell amiably to Ling Huzichaptir and Shaoqing. How could Ling Huzichaptir let her go so quickly? Hey, what did you say to my little junior sister? I won't tell you. Feng Jiao was very evil. She played with the hair in front of her forehead with her eyebrows raised up as she laughed lightly. Brother Hu, my cousin is tired. I will send her back. Farewell. After Su Mayan finished speaking, he carried Feng Jiao and flew in the direction of the Prime Minister Feng's residence. Seeing Su Mayan quickly leaving with Feng Jiao, the corner of Ling Huzichaptir's mouth raised into a smile that was almost non-existent. When the Zhong clan's young master Qing saw Ling Huzichaptir, a faint smile appeared in the depths of his eyes. A hint of playfulness flashed in his eyes. Eldest senior brother doesn't like his junior sister? This meant that he had the chapterance to cat-chapter her. Junior sister, let's return to the inn first. He had to take care of her at all costs. Furthermore, third junior brother was there too, and he knew that Zhong Shaoqing liked the little junior sister a long time ago, so he was happy to see her do it. He often gave them opportunities, but the little junior sister always pestered him. And on the contrary, she rarely talked to him. Yes. Shen Qinghan nodded her head. Chapter 70 Surpress Part 1 That's not right. It had been 3 days since he last visited the Li Chapterin courtyard. Then how did he get this flowery willow disease? The more Xianyuan Haofei thought about it, the more he couldn't sleep, and the more chaptery it felt. Master, do you want me to serve you? If she was lucky enough to be pregnant with the prince's son, then she could become the principal wife of the king of Qi, and not have to look at his dead face anymore. Scram! Xianyuan Haofei did not even think about it, and coldly scolded Xiao Xiang, his eyes cold to the extreme. Ever since she followed King of Qi, Ning Xiang had always been cautious and didn't dare to disobey him. Now that he rebuked her, she immediately started to sob uncontrollably. All right, if you don't scram, this king will leave. Xianyuan Haofei was extremely angry about the flower willow disease, and now Xiao Xiang had become his pun-chaptering bag. Master, don't go. Please don't go. Ning Xiang's naked body crawled out of the bed, hugging Xianyuan Haofei's legs. She looked at him in anticipation. Xianyuan Haofei kicked her away and walked towards the door with large strides. Furthermore, Feng Jiao had smoothly exited the house Xianyuan Haochapterin had left outside of the palace, and was rushing towards Prime Minister's mansion, only that she had left in too much chapter of a hurry, and was still wearing the pink, cicada's wings dress. It was almost midnight. The Prime Minister's mansion was brightly lit. Feng Jiao shouted, "Not good," lowering her eyes to look at her pink-colored cloud dress that was as thin as a cicada's wing. Her eyebrows were tightly creased. Damn it! If she were to return with this set of clothes, and let her father and that third wife see it, what would they say about her? How could he curse himself? Forget it. It's better not to go back to the begonia garden. Just as Feng Jiao wanted to turn around and leave, Feng Jilin arrogantly appeared in front of him. Big sister Jiao, why are you wearing Su chapter revealing clothes? Feng Jilin waved his fan, covering his mouth and laughing. Little sister Jilan, could it be that you're here to wait for me? Since this was an attack from a woman, she was not afraid of it. She would act when the time came, and first observe the situation. So what if I am? Mom and Dad are waiting in the back room. Feng Jilin's lips curled up into a disdainful smile. She thought to herself, it was most likely that the king of Qi had rejected the marriage, so she must be looking for a man at the little Chapterosanthemum temple, right? All right, Sister Jilan, let's go see your parents. She was going to laugh. She was going to laugh so arrogantly, She was going to laugh until you died without a burial ground. Meishi had wanted to go to sleep early, but it looks like there was still a fight to be fought. So confident. Feng Jilin scoffed. She did not believe it. It was strange that he was going to Third Madam's Smoke Pine Pavilion. Little sister Jilin, is Dad really inside? Feng Jiao did not quite believe it. She was so sensitive, as she detected a strange flash across the bottom of Feng Jilin's eyes. Yeah, Dad and Mom still haven't returned to the manor when they saw you. They even sent me to the manor entrance to wait for you. Feng Jilin smiled gently. Oh, damn. The storm at home came so soon? The maid Jiyu, who was standing in front of the third wife, smiled as she stood at the door and lifted the curtain made of pearl jade for them. However, there was only third wife Bai Wanting sitting on the main seat. When she saw Feng Jiao and Feng Jilin enter the room together, a hint of anger flashed across her face. Feng Jiao, as the legitimate daughter, why are you returning to the palace so late, wearing clothes that are so unsightly? Where is the face do you want our prime minister's mansion to have? Bai Wanting smashed his hand on the mahogany table beside him. Mother, calm down. Look, didn't big sister Jiao come back? Feng Jilin advised fakely, but these words were undoubtedly adding fuel to the fire. You still want to come back? So late. Jiyu, it's time. Bai Wanting glanced at Jiyu, intentionally asking about the time. Mother, Yao previously could not sleep after eating dinner, so he went out to take a walk. Feng Jiao casually said. How did the third madam know that she wasn't in Begonia Garden at this time of day? Could it be that her Begonia Garden had been set up by her? Right, where's father? Strange, why isn't father here? Big sister Jiao, you still don't know, right? Dad's had a relapse today, and has already gone to the outskirts of the village to recuperate. He'll be back in a few days. Otherwise, how would he find the fault of her direct daughter, Feng Jiao? Feng Jilin laughed complacently, as he played with the long pink armor in a good mood. Damn, the father Feng has already had a relapse, and the mother and daughter are still so happy. Oh, that manor has good scenery and good air, making it suitable for recuperation. Of course it's more suitable for you two to plot against me. Alright, since Father Feng isn't here, then she doesn't mind if he doesn't clean up the mess. You're really going out for a walk? Bai Wanting sneered, then clapped 3 times, summoning all 4 maidservants of spring, or chapter it in autumn. Mistress, please answer her question carefully. If you are wrong, please be careful of your skin. Jiyu gave them a serious look and reprimanded them. Please question me, madam. The 4 of them did not even dare to look at Feng Jiao's face. When did eldest miss leave? When did she return to the residence? Bai Wanting looked at Feng Jiao with a cold smile. He was infected, and yet he went out to roam around so late. However, as long as she was the first daughter, then Liner could forget about marrying into the imperial family as the first wife. The girl he loved was like her. Of course she didn't want her daughter to be a concubine for the rest of her life. How could Feng Jiao have thought that the difference in power from ancient times was so important? Eldest Miss Shi. Chapteriner did not dare say anything. Thus she glanced at Feng Jiao, a little afraid. Feel free to speak. Then, she waved the silver hairpin in her hand. Amongst the 4 maidservants of Spring, Spring was the most experienced. Thus, when the matriarch chapter asked, she was naturally the first to ask her. Eldest Miss. She. Chapteriner looked apologetically towards the direction of eldest Miss Feng Jiao. After seeing the silver hairpin that was held by her mother, Bai Wanting, Chapterina's initially wavering heart, she gritted her teeth and made up her mind. The little sister she and she were mutually dependent on was in the hands of Bai Wanting. Young miss, I'm sorry, but Chapterina has to chapterus her younger sister. Thus, Chapterina straightened her back and looked towards Feng Jiao, silently apologizing, then reporting to Bai Wanting. Young miss had left the Begonia Garden in the morning, and have not returned to her house since then. It was only until now that I saw her. These words undoubtedly proved that Feng Jiao was suspected of not returning home overnight, and with a witness, logically speaking, he should be punished for this mistake. Laner Chiu or Juer, do you all say the same thing as Chapteriner? A sarcastic smile appeared on Bai Wanting's face as he looked at the 4 maidservants of Spring, or Chapterit, Autumn, and Chapteris Anthem. Reporting to mistress, indeed. It is as elder sister Chapteriner said. Your servants can all be witnesses. The three of them had their weak points threatened by the mother and daughter of the Bai clan. Naturally, they could only blindly obey their orders. Spring or Chaptered autumn flower. Am I usually good to you? They actually twisted their elbows outwards. Feng Jiao did not get angry, but instead straightened her slim waist. Like a pine tree, her beautiful face was covered in frost and icicles. Eldest miss, what I said was the truth. Thinking of the words sent by Bai Wanting, Spring or Chaptered autumn flower hurriedly bit her lips and said, Is it true? Feng Jiao unceremoniously yawned, and then coldly laughed. She quickly grabbed the white jade teacup in Feng Jilin's hands, and gracefully gripped it in her hands, causing Feng Jilin to uncontrollably panic. What was she trying to do? The current Feng Jiao was high above them, noble and noble, with a noble aura that made one unable to ignore him, unknowingly brought about an indescribable feeling of oppression, causing one to be unable to breathe. Everyone in the room looked strangely at Feng Jiao, who was standing there. They could hear the crisp sound of the white jade teacup shattering, and very quickly they could no longer hear anything, leaving only the sound of powder flying everywhere. In an instant, all of it fell onto the ground, causing everyone's hearts to palpitate in fear. Feng Jiao's expression sank, her beautiful little face revealing an ice-cold expression. Spring or Chaptered autumn flower. This young miss will give you one more chapterance. Who ordered what you did today? When Bai Wanting saw Feng Jiao's action of breaking the teacup, he was overwhelmed with shock. This direct daughter of his was becoming more and more difficult to deal with. Wasn't she a delicate lady in the past? When did he become so godly? And his expression made it seem as if he had come from the royal family. This caused Bai Wanting to feel fear in his heart. But now, the arrow was on the bow, and he had no chapterois but to shoot. He might as well destroy this direct daughter of his, and end things once and for all. If she really died at that time, he would say that her illness had broken out and she had died. By then, the old master wouldn't be able to find anything wrong with her. Feng Jilin still had a hint of emotion in his eyes, as he hurriedly gave a look to his mother. Bai Wanting. Mother, let's not listen to the slut Ruoro. Perhaps what big sister Jiao said is true. Feng Jilin hoped that her mother would be able to understand what he meant. Mother, do you think little sister Jilin is so sensible? As the mistress of the Prime Minister's mansion, could it be that you are inferior to a junior? Feng Jiao lazily closed his eyes, then suddenly opened them again, and looked straight at Bai Wanting. At this moment, when Bai Wanting caught sight of her, a hint of fear suddenly arose in his heart. Feng Jiao, this mistress is very good. When you speak, you must force your way through. Bai Wanting was stuffy, but he immediately shouted for someone to come. A group of servants swarmed forward, with ropes in hand. They wanted to tie Feng Jiao up. Damn, a bun chapter of small fries want to kidnap her, the night demon. Gold medal killer? They are tired of living. Feng Jiao smirked as he quickly moved through the crowd, playing with the servants around. You bun chapter of idiots. Quickly capture her for me. Quickly. Bai Wanting shouted anxiously, losing his matriarch chapter's dignified demeanor. Feng Jilin's advice didn't enter her ears at all. Feng Jiao felt that it was boring to play around with this group of small fries, so she saved herself a bit of effort, and quickly grabbed one of the servants' neck with her hands, breaking his neck with a ka-chapter sound, causing blood to spurt out. Ah! Everyone present saw this bloody scene and all of them cried out in alarm, especially Feng Jilin, who fell to the ground from fright. The look in her eyes when she looked at Feng Jiao was filled with abnormal fear, because she felt that the current Feng Jiao was just as terrifying as the one who had taken his life from that Azura. Hurry up and come if you're not afraid of death. I'm bored. Feng Jiao smiled lazily, his smile full of cunning. No, big sister Jiao, please let my mother and I go. Feng Jilin actually fearfully kowtowed to her. Even Bai Wanting was scared out of her wits by this scene. She cursed herself for being stupid. She didn't have the confidence to investigate everything clearly, so she mistook the tiger's teeth for something else. The spring or chaptered autumn flowers were naturally too frightened to get up. Their faces were ashen, and their hearts were full of fear. This was the first time they had seen Su chapter a ruthless young miss. If I let you off, then who's going to let me off? Feng Jiao understood the principle of letting the tigers return to the mountains, so she laughed a few times. The cold air mixed with ridicule shot towards the mother, daughter of the Bai family, and the 4 maidservants of the spring orchaptered flower. Unexpectedly, her begonia garden's water is really deep. Someone got 4 spies and set them up by her side. Eldest miss, all of us servants are at fault. She sent someone to capture all of our family members, using them to coerce us, and to say things that are not good for eldest miss. Chapteriner's voice was filled with tears as she said this, hoping that eldest miss would let them go. That's right, young miss. It's all because of this wicked woman. Lana did the same. As for Chior and Juer, they both nodded like chapterics pecking rice. Feng Jiao laughed out loud. She had not said she would kill them yet. Why were all of them so scared? This was not fun at all. However, she wouldn't let any of them off easy. Chapter 70 Surpress Part 2 Mother. So this is what you did? Are you still going to call me your mother? Feng Jiao walked towards Bai Wanting like a lotus flower, looking down at her and ridiculing her. Please spare my life, eldest miss. Of course, Bai Wanting didn't want to die yet, so he had to shout for help. With his life he could repeat anything. Without his life, everything was for nothing. She knelt down and hugged Feng Jiao's legs tightly, secretly gesturing to her daughter, Feng Jilin, to scoop up a hairpin and stab Feng Jiao to death. However, Feng Jilin did not dare to do so. Bai clan, since you plan to murder your own daughter, since your father is not in the mansion, then I can only imprison you. Also, let go of your dirty hands. Fuck, why was he hugging her legs so tightly? Do you think her legs are her pillow? Feng Jiao, I am your elder, so you can't do that. You can't lock me up. You definitely can't do that without the permission of the old master. When Bai Wanting heard that Feng Jiao wanted to put him under house arrest, he was immediately displeased and shouted hoarsely, as if he was crazy. I beg you, big sister Jiao, please don't. Mother, she really didn't do it on purpose. It was just that she cared too much about you, and cared too much about you, that she would ask you why you returned so late. Really, big sister Jiao, the words of those lowly maidservants are all unbelievable. When Feng Jilin saw that his mother was about to be placed under house arrest by Feng Jiao, he immediately crawled towards her, hoping that she would soften her heart. What are you all still standing around for? Could it be that the money that our Prime Minister's mansion has given you are for nothing? Hurry up and imprison this lowly woman, by sure, in the autumn cold courtyard. For the time being, you all still have to look at my father, your old master's name. Feng Jiao raised his hand and pointed to Bai Wanting, who was vomiting blood, and fiercely ordered the servants. Who would dare? I am the mistress of the Prime Minister's mansion. Chapter 1 of you dares to come. And who gave you the guts to eat a bare-heart leopard? This was the first time that Bai Wanting had been angered by a junior to the point that his teeth chattered. The servants looked at chapter other. That's right. One was the new matriarch chapter of the Prime Minister's mansion. She was extremely clever and despicable. The other was the young miss. Her wrist was strong and sinister. No one could easily offend her. How did you guys forget how he died? Feng Jiao pointed at the dead body that was in a miserable state, and said with a cold expression, No. Eldest miss, all of you, your servants, obey. The servants who carried her had long seen through the situation. Feng Jiao didn't need to say anything more, and wanted to bring Bai Wanting to the Qiuleng Yuan. Don't come over. I am the mistress of the Prime Minister's mansion. You are not allowed to come here. How could Bai Wanting be willing to submit? Mother, big sister Jiao, I beg you, please let my mother go. That house in the Qiuleng Chaptiruan courtyard is covered in ice and stone, and my mother will definitely not be able to endure that suffering. I beg you, big sister Jiao, please let my mother go. I'm willing to go to the Qiuleng Chaptiruan courtyard on behalf of my mother. Feng Jilin could not bear to see his mother go to that bitter place that felt like an ice house. Being filial, of course she couldn't bear to see her mother in that place. Since the two of you have Su chapter a deep love for Ea chapter other, Why don't you go to the Abyssal Bone Forest Academy together for a few days? Feng Jiao laughed coldly. Did he think that she was still the original owner, who was ridden on horseback? This method of gaining sympathy was not working on her side. Linner, the one who wants to harm you is me. It has nothing to do with Linner. I beg of you, please let her go. Bai Wanting wiped his tears as he wailed. Tisk, stop pushing EA chapter other around. I'm tired. Feng Jiao raised his hand, signaling the servants to quickly bring them down to the cold autumn courtyard. Little bit chapter, you're as lowly as your mother. You're a bastard. You are a bastard. I will kill you. Bai Wanting, who had been driven mad by the servants, became even more enraged, spouting incoherent words. Tell me clearly who is the bastard. Feng Jiao's sleepiness was diluted by these two words. Of course it's you. I think that old master should be embarrassed to speak of it as well. Seeing that she wanted to know more, Bai Wanting ridiculed Feng Jiao. Haha, bastard. The bastard is also nobler than your daughter, because I am the direct descendant of the Prime Minister's mansion. Your words cannot hurt me. Scram. Feng Jiao waved to the servants, signaling them to bring the two women away quickly. Little stinky brat, I'm going to fight you to the death. The reason why Bai Wanting wanted to get rid of Feng Jiao was because of his son. Feng Jilin never thought that Feng Jiao's reaction would be so quick. She actually used Feng Jilin's body to block the golden hairpin that was coming from White Knight Pavilion. Mother, why do you have to suffer? After he finished speaking, Feng Jilin's left shoulder blade started bleeding non-stop. What a heartless mother. They actually stabbed their own daughter. Feng Jiao was also not someone who was easy to deal with. Her gaze landed on the Bai family's pale white face that was scared silly. Then, she motioned for the servants to quickly bring the Bai clan to the autumn cold courtyard and imprison them. Ji was called over to help Feng Jilin up. Go get a doctor. If Feng Jilin died just like that, she would have no toys to play with in Prime Minister's mansion. The servant who received the order quickly went to get a doctor. Sis Jiao, my mother was too stubborn. Please let her go. Feng Jilin was worried that the Bai clan would suffer. Hence, regardless of the pain in her body, she could not bear it, and knelt down towards Feng Jiao with teary eyes. If you were me, do you think you could forgive your mother for what she did? Feng Jiao glanced at Feng Jilin with her ice-cold eyes, threw down those words coldly and walked out. I'll dismiss this servant. Servants. Seeing that Feng Jiao did not let them get up, Spring or Chapter Autumn Flower bravely asked. Begonia Garden doesn't raise half-hearted servants. In the future, you don't have to serve me anymore. The indenture contract, I will let someone tear it up. So you can scram now. Feng Jiao originally wanted to kill them, but after thinking about it, the service they served her previously was worth it. So he gave them a way out. Young Miss Wu. Spring or Chapter Flower sobbed silently. They really regretted not being loyal enough to protect their master. Feng Jilin watched chaptered as the pink figure floated away. A bloodthirsty hatred flashed past her lowered eyes. No, even if she was a concubine, she still had to walk the path of the blue clouds. Yes, Blue Festival would be the shortcut for her to rise to the top. Third Miss, please bear with it any longer. The doctor should be arriving soon. Ji Yu was glad that he was able to protect himself and not become Mrs. Enemy. However, this was the first time she had seen Su chapter a vicious young miss. She always felt that this young miss had somehow unknowingly chapter-ranged. Ji Yu, help me. I want you to help me. Feng Jilin knelt sincerely towards Ji Yu. Third Miss, what are you doing? Ji Yu did not expect the noble Third Miss to kneel before a servant like her. Thus, she hurriedly helped Feng Jilin up. Help me find a capable person who can make rouge water powder. I want his lips, teeth, and skin as white as snow within 7 days. Ji Yu, I know that you are the only one who can help me. Please. Feng Jilin knelt down towards Ji Yu once again. Third Miss, I can't accept this. Ji Yu tried to help her up again. If you don't agree, I'll kneel down and not rise. Feng Jilin acted as if he had taken a heavy load and steeled his heart. I'll promise you that. Third Miss, the ground is cold. Hurry up and get up. Ji Yu thought about how the third wife usually treated him well, so she closed her eyes and agreed. In the end, she was still going to be involved in this storm. Under Feng Jilin's downcast gaze, A hint of determination flashed past his eyes. So what if she was a concubine? She had to beat Feng Jiao, the direct daughter. Definitely better. When Feng Jiao returned to Begonia Garden, exhausted, he was already asleep, leaning against the doorframe. Feng Jiao sighed lightly and said softly, Ziyan, go back to your room and sleep. Eldest miss, are you all right? Earlier, they brought away the spring or chapterate autumn flower, and the others, is it? Ziyan did not continue. She only knew that she was now an ordinary girl, and could not use martial arts in front of the Feng family. I drove away the chapterosanthemum. I don't need this half-hearted girl. Feng Jiao yawned lazily. Ziyan, I want to take a bath again. Go get the girl from the outer court to boil some hot water. Then you can go back to your room and rest. She was sweating and feeling extremely uncomfortable. Which chapter was why she had ordered him to do so. Yes, Mississippi. Ziyan nodded his head. Feng Jiao walked back into the house and saw that Situ Yele actually flew in from the window at the side. Yele, why are you here again? Feng Jiao never thought that he would actually appear so late. I missed you, so I naturally came. Situ Yele stepped forward to hug her, and when he saw the clothes on her body, he fiercely frowned. How can you wear this? In fact, it didn't even look like clothes. It was like a thin roll of smoky gauze. I almost bumped into the crown prince on the way back. Fortunately, I was smart enough to escape. Feng Jiao felt very tired, so she gently leaned on Situ Yele's shoulder. Are you all right? Situ Yele hugged her and carefully examined her entire body. Fortunately, he didn't kiss her at all. I'm fine. I just felt a bit scared. After I returned and the matriarch chapter attacked me, I felt tired. Feng Jiao narrated indifferently, as she lightly leaned in front of his chapterist, a trace of gentleness flashing past her eyes. Yawa, if you feel tired, marry me soon. Situ Yele sighed as he used his flexible chapteron to lightly press it against her forehead. Yele, what about Princess Lingxi? Feng Jiao shook her head and asked. Of course she was asking about the truth. Eldest miss, the bath soup is ready. The girl's voice came from outside. All right, come in. Feng Jiao indicated for Situ Yele to avoid it, and she spoke with her red lips. Yawa, those two girls have left. I'm coming out now. Situ Yele heard the door close, and then appeared beside Feng Jiao once more. Sai, your speed is really fast. Feng Jiao pouted and teased. It's so late, go wash up. Let's sleep together. Situ Yele's face was filled with a doting smile. He missed her Somu chapter since he hadn't seen her for a day. Feng Jiao smiled faintly but did not say a word, his thoughts flying out into the sky a long time ago. Tomorrow, she had to go to the Cloudy Lake Manor and tell Father Feng that he had to make a decision regarding the Bai family's mother and daughter's conduct and deeds. After all, right now, the Father Feng was still in chapterarch of the Feng family. Ah, what are you fumbling about? Suddenly, Feng Jiao felt a sharp pain in his lower abdomen. Yaoi, I want you. I can't help it. As Situ Yele wiped her face with the snow-white silk, he observed her beautiful face carefully. The more he looked, the more engrossed he became, and the more he found himself unable to restrain himself. I'm still bathing. Feng Jiao shyly looked at his long white fingers that were harassing her, flirtatiously pouting. She did not have any intentions of berating him. She was only surprised at his boldness and boldness. Yao, I don't care. I want to bathe with you. How could Situ Yele still endure it? He quickly took off his clothes and jumped into the lacquered wooden bath barrel that she was bathing in. Within the dense water vapor, sparkling and translucent splashes appeared one after another. Chapter 71 Contest Between Men Part 1. After an enchapteranting man's love affair. Feng Jiao let Situ Yele go back first, while she herself fell asleep. On the morning of the second day, after Feng Jiao ate his breakfast, he brought Ziyan to the carriage and headed towards the direction of the Cloud Lake small villa. When Feng Wuxia heard about Bai Wanting's actions, he immediately started coughing out of anger. Dad, are you all right? Feng Jiao was worried that he would not be able to handle this kind of excitement. Yao, it's all right. Daddy will make the decision for you. Feng Wuxia paused for a moment before continuing. Yao, you can go back first. Father is very tired and would like to lie down for a while longer. Feng Wuxi's tone was a little powerless as he waved for her to leave. All right, then I'll be going. Father, be careful. Feng Jiao never thought that the father Feng did not blame her for keeping Bai Wanting under house arrest. Yes, father should go back the day after tomorrow. Feng Wuxi nodded. Feng Jiao knew that father Feng was here to recuperate because of a hot spring in Cloud Lake's little villa. On the way to the Cloud Lake small villa, they would pass by the Li Mountains autumn tide horse farm. The weather was clear today, and there were no clouds for miles. Therefore, as Feng Jiao enjoyed the beautiful scenery along the way, he saw lush greenery, gorgeous wildflowers, and kai-dai fluttering into the sky. Autumn tide horse farm? At first, miss, isn't that young Master Wen? Ziyan saw with his sharp eyes a tall and handsome figure standing outside the horse farm. Let me take a look. Feng Jiao also looked from afar and confirmed that the person was Wen Xingyuan. Xingyuan! Feng Jiao shouted. Hearing that, Wen Xingyuan immediately turned around and flew over and asked while standing under the carriage. Yaoer, how did you come to the Qiulan stable? I happened to pass by. Feng Jiao's answer was ambiguous, so she guessed that since Father Feng chapteros the Cloudy Lake Manor as the treatment for his old illness, she definitely did not want too many people to know about it. If we are not in a hurry, we will ride our horses together. Z-Chapter, your cousin and the rest of them will be coming to the race soon. When Xingyuan smiled and invited her. Are you saying that my cousin will also come? Feng Jiao asked if Su Mayan would come as well. Yes, and the Beitang siblings will come as well. When Xingyuan told the truth. I don't want to see them. I'm leaving first. Feng Jiao pulled down the curtain of the carriage and was about to urge the COA chapterman, Wan Sanzi, to quickly drive the carriage away. Cousin Jiao. From afar, Su Mayan caught a glimpse of Feng Jiao, who was happily chapter-ratting with him. Now he had chapter-ranged to a new white horse. Whi chapter was tall and sturdy, and looked like a good stallion. Young Master Su, why did you call me? When Feng Jiao thought about how he had almost been possessed by Xianyuan Hao chapteran, he naturally didn't have a good attitude towards her. Did you sleep well last night? Su Mayan asked in concern. Very good, there's no need for young Master Su to worry. Feng Jiao didn't even look at Su Mayan. Prince Su, young Master Wen, how have you been? He saw a young woman walk down from a palanquin with a white veil on it. Good morning, Miss Fu. Wen Xingyuan and Su Mayan looked at Yi chapter other, then looked at the person below them. It was the big miss of the Plum Villa, Fu Shuiyan. My brother is too busy, he can't come, so he instructed Shui Yin to race with you guys. Don't let me go just because I'm a girl. Fu Shuiyan teased as though she was joking, her exquisite face shining with a bright light. When Feng Jiao heard Su chapter candid laughter, he looked in front of him to see that the young lady was dressed in a jade green gown with many white scattered flowers dotted on her pleated skirt. She was wearing a swallows with water ripples on her body. Her shoulders were as thin as a silk, her skin was creamy, and her chi was like cornflower. Her entire body was releasing a kind of wild beauty. Feng Jiao felt that this Fu Shuiyan was a lot more amiable than her concubine sisters, and immediately smiled at her in a friendly manner. This lady looks so familiar. Fu Shuiyan felt that he had seen Feng Jiao somewhere before and laughed. She's my cousin Jiao. Su Mayan introduced, and looked at Feng Jiao with suspicion. Why was she wearing the vertical collar clothes with lotus petals on Su chapter a hot day? Feng Jiao? Nanshao's #1 beauty? Fu Shuiyan beamed with joy and ridiculed. Just a busybody. Feng Jiao smiled faintly. Fu Shuiyan felt that the Feng Jiao in front of her was very Mu chapter to her liking. Thus she laughed heartily before walking towards Feng Jiao's carriage. How about a race? I can stay here for another 2 hours. 2 hours later, I have something I need to do. Feng Jiao nodded her head upon hearing it. She had chapter-ranged her mind. Later when she went to see Li Jinran, she would let his yearning for her deepen, and it would be more convenient for him to fall down from the sky. Yao, did you chapter-range your mind? When Xingyuan was ecstatic. Yes. Feng Jiao smiled and nodded. Linghu Z-chapter, you're here too? Feng Jiao saw an enchapteranting red-clothed Linghu Zhiji get down from a luxurious carriage. He was accompanied by Shin Qing Han, the young master of the Zhong clan. Ling Huzi Chaptir smiled playfully upon hearing that. Previously, he was still calling him Big Brother Z Chaptir. But now, things had chapter-arranged really quickly. It must be because of Xing Yuan. He didn't know why, but when he thought of this possibility, he felt a little disappointed. However, he still had a chapter-arming and alluring smile on his face, his beauty peerless. When Shen Qinghan heard Feng Jiao call her senior brother, she believed even more deeply in her heart what he had just said to her. Zhong Xiaoqing looked at Feng Jiao in displeasure. This woman truly desired the world to be free from chaptereos. To think that she could instigate Su chapter thoughts in her junior sister's head. Haha, so everyone's here. We're just waiting for that big and crude fellow, Zi Qian. When Xing Yuan laughed, and then raised his hand to grab onto Feng Jiao's small hand. He did not hide anything, as if he was announcing his ownership to someone else. Su Mayan glared fiercely at Feng Jiao with a cold, handsome face. Did this woman really put him in her eyes? Xing Yuan, I have something to say to cousin sister Jiao. Su Mayan walked over to Wen Xing Yuan and said. When Xing Yuan smiled faintly and agreed. With his sharp mind, how could he not know that Su Mayan had chapter-arranged Somu chapter? Xing Yuan, I have nothing to say to him. Of course Feng Jiao had to reject her. Every time she fought with him, there would always be bad news. Cousin Jiao, it only took half an incense stick of time. This was the first time Su Mayan let go of his figure in front of a girl's house, as he gently said, All right, let's go Xing Yuan, wait for me first. Seeing that they were still waiting for Beitang Ziqian and her sister, Feng Jiao thought for a bit, and felt that it would be better to clarify some things, so that no one would stop her from taking advantage of them. He followed Su Mayan to a small mountain slope 5 kilometers away. The grass was luxuriant, and the wild chrysanthemums had just bloomed. If you have something to say, just say it. Feng Jiao flung Su Mayan's hand away. A cold glint appeared in her eyes, as though she was trying to steal soul. Why is it so tightly wrapped up in Su chapter a hot weather? Aren't you afraid of the heat? Su Mayan hesitated for a moment, thinking of the most suitable words and asked. Su Mayan, don't you think that your control is too broad? When Feng Jiao heard this, he really wanted to kick this 3,000 li cousin out of his mind. Cousin Jiao, I said that I would take care of you properly. I'm just concerned about you. Su Mayan said extremely seriously. He especially didn't like her walking too close to other men. I thank you for your concern. Also, don't talk to me with a face that looks like you're doing everything for me. Let me tell you, I Feng Jiao won't be able to take it. Feng Jiao said as her lips curled slightly, her eyes incomparably cold. Then what is your relationship with Wen Xing Yuan? And that Ling Huzi Chaptir? What did he have to do with him? Who is the chapteriled in your womb? The thing that Su Mayan could not tolerate the most was the fact that she had really lost her virginity. The chapteriled in your belly? Why didn't she know? Oh, she remembered he had believed her nonsense. She had completely forgotten about it, but he still cared about it. Somu chapter. How strange. You have no right to know. Feng Jiao yawned lazily, obviously not sleeping well enough. It was obvious that he had fought a great battle with Situ Yele on the bed for 300 rounds last night. How do I qualify? Because of her anger, she couldn't help but blurt out those words, causing Feng Jiao to be in a daze for a moment. In any case, you don't have the qualifications. Feng Jiao, this little girl, was very proud. And to let Su Mayan feel uncomfortable all by himself. Am I really not qualified? I am your cousin. It was clear that Su Mayan was enraged by her, and even her tone of voice was raised by a few decibels. It's not like he's his cousin. Feng Jiao snorted upon hearing this, his gaze landing on the purple-colored daisy beside his feet. What? Not a blood cousin? Fine. If he immediately kissed her, wouldn't that mean he had become a blood-related cousin? Yes, kiss her. In the future, he would have the qualifications to control her. Thus, like a thunderbolt, he lowered his head and kissed her captivating red lips. Her lips were so soft and sweet that he could not bear to let them go. He closed his eyes and carefully traced the outline of her beautiful lips with his tongue. This was the first time he had taken the initiative to kiss someone else. Su Mayan closed his eyes and kissed her soft lips. He stuck out his tongue and gently parted her lips. The sweetness in her mouth made him want to and he turned it over in her mouth and sucked on her lilac tongue, tasting her beauty. What are you doing? From afar, when Xing Yuan, who was dressed in white, flew over like the clouds and flowing water. Her eyes were filled with ice-cold frost. Ah! Feng Jiao had the urge to dig a hole in the ground. He was really unlucky. Yao or Muyan, you two better give me an explanation. After when Xing Yuan gracefully landed on the ground, the first words that came out of his mouth contained a sharp killing intent within it that was neither warm nor fire. Oh, my teeth are hurting a little. Cousin will help me blow on them. Feng Jiao told her the worst lie that could ever happen. Cousin Jiao you. Su Mian did not think that Feng Jiao would actually explain himself in Su chapter away to Wen Xing Yuan. What about me? I don't have any more teeth now. Alright, we are done talking. Xing Yuan, cousin brother, let's go to the horse race together. In order to resolve this issue, Feng Jiao took the initiative to take the initiative and bring them along on his left and right. Xing Yuan, I still want to get on that Han Bao's back. I wonder if it's okay now. Feng Jiao saw that all of them were sulking and did not reply. But it did not matter, she did not care, and continued doing her own thing. Yao walked slowly. When Xing Yuan thought about the kiss that made his heart ache a little, his heart was ripped apart by a string. Why would I need to walk slower? I want to walk faster. I want to ride Han Bao and travel even faster. Feng Jiao didn't care what he said. Su Mian used all his strength, and in the next second, Feng Jiao was already in his embrace. Why are you talking about me? My wrist hurts. Feng Jiao chapterized him for not understanding. She rolled her eyes at him. I kissed you earlier. I have the qualifications to care about you. Stay away from Wen Xing Yuan in the future. Su Mian said in a low voice. Chapter 71 Contest Between Men Part 2. As Wen Xing Yuan was a martial artist, how could he not hear it? Thus, he used his strength to pull at Feng Jiao. Yao, you have already agreed to marry me, so you should keep your distance from other men and not go overboard. Alright. You two don't need to worry about me. First, take care of your own racing competition. Feng Jiao felt that she was tired. She did not say a word, but only coldly looked at them. Suddenly, an indescribable murderous aura enveloped the two of them like a thin layer of ice. It was gentle and gentle, causing her soft hair to flutter in the wind. Her originally gentle face suddenly turned fiendish, as if she was an azure from hell. Yao, how did you? At this moment, Wen Xing Yuan felt that he had never had a deep understanding of Feng Jiao before. Cousin Jiao, I have to take care of you. I'm saying that we've already kissed, so you'll be considered my wife. Just as Su Mian wanted to continue speaking, she was caught unawares by Feng Jiao's handsome face, and quickly pun-chaptered out. Ah, you've hit too hard. Su Mian looked at Feng Jiao in disbelief. Damn it, luckily he reacted quickly. Otherwise, his eyes wouldn't be able to protect themselves. Right now one of his eyes was very swollen, appearing very black. This is the price of your nonsense, Feng Jiao said with a small icy face. After she finished speaking, she pulled Wen Xing Yuan and left. Yao fought well. Wen Xing Yuan looked at her with a doting smile in his eyes. This girl always surprised him. But when he saw her flirtatious relationship with Su Mian, it made his eyes shine. Right now, he had an impulse to tell them that Yao belonged to him alone. Xing Yuan, are Beitang Ziqian and the rest here yet? She covered her mouth and smiled, then asked. Xing Yuan Muyan quickly, we have already picked our horses. Ling Hu Zichaptir called out from afar. Let's go, cousin. Feng Jiao turned and looked coldly at Su Mian, but she was feeling depressed in her heart. She had already made his eyes into the eyes of a panda, but he actually did not punish her. Humph! Su Mian was still angry at her, so with a cold snort, his tall figure flashed past Feng Jiao, and Wen Xing Yuan sighed, and headed towards Ling Hu Zichaptir. Yao, let's go, you sit on Han Bao later. I will go pick a good horse. Wen Xing Yuan tightly wrapped her small hand around her petite hand. The warmth that was transmitted from the center of her palm was spread all over her internal organs, and all of a sudden, her petite face flushed red, and she assented with a soft voice. All right. Ah, Beidang Zishuan rode on my Han Bao. Oh wow, Han Bao, this bad horse, had actually forgotten about her big miss. Yao, pick another one. Wen Xingyuan naturally did not want his relationship with the Beitang aristocrat clan to get out of hand, so he advised with a smile. All right, let's do the reselection then. Feng Jiao saw that a chapter of them have found a horse that fit their needs. She was the only one who was still chapterising carefully. Eldest miss, this horse is hot-tempered. Go find another one. He was naturally thinking for his own little life. If this young lady was injured while riding on this fierce horse, he would not be able to escape the punishment. No, I want this one. Don't worry, I picked it myself, it has nothing to do with you. Feng Jiao said with a sweet smile. Eldest Miss Xia understands. The COA chapterman hurriedly knelt down towards Feng Jiao to thank him. Does this horse have a name? Feng Jiao asked curiously. It hasn't been named yet. The Beitang family had just bought it from Haining country. The COA chapterman shook his head and answered. All right, I have to give it a name. Run as fast as possible. Feng Jiao was lazy. Calling her by Su chapter a vulgar name made Wen Xingyuan and the others laugh. Beitang Zishuan took a look at Feng Jiao with disdain, thinking that it was too vulgar and intolerable. Fu Shuyan sat on a red horse and smiled at Feng Jiao. After smiling, he looked at Beitang Ziqian who was beside him with embarrassment and timidness. Feng Jiao finally understood that Fu Shuyan liked Beitang Ziqian. She couldn't help but cry in sympathy for Fu Shuyan. If she were to marry into the Beitang aristocrat clan in the future, she would definitely suffer. Why? This sister-in-law is so difficult to deal with. Her life as a sister-in-law must not be easy. However, there was no trace of Fu Shuyan in Beitang Ziqian's eyes. It seemed like she was the one who was unluckiest and most unlucky. How pitiful. Therefore, in this life, she still didn't want to be moved by emotions. The word love was too hurtful, just like the young miss of the night demon, Feng Jumei, who loved a man. In the end, that man was indeed a spy. And a man was truly not to be trusted. Since she could not bear the pain of losing him, she had better not to chapter that thing called harmonious love. Cousin Jiao, can you give me a better name? After all, this horse is still a good foal. Su Mayan covered his left eye with one hand and disagreed. It was so painful. That little girl's strength is not small at all. Even after applying the ointment, it still hurt so mu chapter. Ziyan stood quietly at the side with her eyes lowered, unable to tell what she was thinking. It's still faster than flying. Feng Jiao rolled his eyes at him and continued. Forget it, it's about the same. Beitang Ziqian was speech-chapterless. She was obviously Su-chapter a talented girl. How could she be so vulgar? He really didn't know what point Situ Yele and Wen Xingyuan, the two morons, had taken a fancy to her. Could it be that peerless beauty in the world? After looking at it so closely, Feng Jiao was rather exquisite, causing him to be unable to help himself from taking a few more glances. Zhongxing Shaoqing's gaze was always on Shin Qinghan. He saw his beloved girl's gaze following Ling Huzi chapter, and his heart couldn't help but to become chapteriotic as it stung a little. However, Ling Huzi chapter didn't seem to be looking at anyone. Instead, he was looking at the fierce horse that was flying very fast, with a surprised expression in his eyes. In the Nanshao kingdom, this kind of horse was indeed rare. There was only one in the entire Pilking Valley. It was his lightning. Luckily he didn't ride on it when he came to Xianyang. Otherwise he would have died a long time ago. Feng Jiao felt that someone's words could convey many of their emotions. She did not chapter it. Instead, she stood there and lightly called out. Fly fast. This name is something I hope you will like. The smile on his face was harmless and extremely beautiful. Fly fast. He turned his head back and forth with vigilance in his eyes. However, he did not raise his hooves to kick her. They laughed and chaptered her talk with the horse in all seriousness. And when it was rare for them to be patient today, they stood under a nearby tree and waited. Who knew that after some time, Feng Jiao would actually get close to the strong horses? Suddenly, she turned and smiled towards Wen Xingyuan and the others. Suddenly, he let out a long hiss and flew up into the air. Then, like a bolt of silver lightning, he chapterarged forward. Yawa! Wen Xingyuan was shocked, and immediately whipped his horse, and went to chapter race after him. The others were also shocked, and only Beitang Zishuan was rejoicing in his misfortune. Beitang Ziqian was shocked. After calming himself down, He immediately carried his sister Beitang Zixuan off and chapter raced after her. "Big brother, where are you going?" Seeing that her big brother had also left, Beitang Zixuan was extremely furious. But seeing that the others beside her had looked at her deeply, she decided to let it go and shouted out in concern, "Big brother, be careful." "Cousin, my big brother is good at riding, don't worry." Beitang Zixuan walked to Fu Shuiyan's side and said, "I am not worried about my cousin. I am worried about Miss Feng. She is Su chapter a weak beauty, don't fall from your horse. It would not be good if she falls into any kind of illness." She bit her lower lip and said worriedly. She was very reserved and did not say that she was worried about her cousin Beitang Ziqian. That's right, if he fell sick or something, then it wouldn't be good. These words seemed to have awoken the person from their dreams. Su Mayan immediately followed after him regardless of the serious injuries on his eyes. Afterwards, Ling Hu Zichaptir also went over. His past reason was very simple. He has the best medical skills here. He'll naturally be useful if we go there. Shen Qinghan frowned and could only leave it to him. Beitang Ziqian knew very well that his flying speed was extremely violent. In the past few days, he had lost count of the number of trainers who had died under its hooves. He was so shocked that they were drenchaptered in cold sweat. His hands were on their horses while chapter racing, but his flying speed was so fast that even Yi Yufeng was ahead of him, maintaining a distance away from him. Wen Xingyuan was extremely shocked. He didn't want anything to happen to her. Ling Hu Zichaptir's eyes were filled with dark clouds. This girl must not have fallen so miserably. Otherwise, he would have to waste quite a number of expensive medicines. At this moment, Su Mayan's eyes were filled with fury and fear. His first reaction was to jump up from the saddle, and using the advantage of his light skill, he landed on the back of the horse that was flying very fast. Feng Jiao was curious. Why would Su Mayan, who always hated him, be the first to take action to stop the soaring sky? If she was furious, she could understand. She had previously beaten him into a panda eye. If she was scared, then wouldn't she understand? In the past few days, the so-called taking care of her that Su Mayan had showed her made her sensitive towards him, that he probably had feelings for her. She really couldn't compare the current Su Mayan with the previous Su Mayan. This strange emotion made her happy, but it also made her feel troubled, so she would rather ignore it. Very quickly, a large hand wrapped around her slender waist. His score-chaptering hot body was tightly wrapped around hers. "Cousin Jiao, you scared me to death just now," he softly murmured, as if he was mumbling between lovers, but his arms were tightening, almost making Feng Jiao unable to breathe. "Su Mayan, be a little more gentle. I can't breathe." He hugged her too tightly, suffocating her to the point of being uncomfortable. The other three looked at the two on horseback, while Beitang Ziqian rubbed his nose and looked elsewhere. It was just that he actually felt a little disappointed in his heart. The one with the biggest reaction was Wen Xingyuan. He wished he could pull Su Mayan off his flying fast body. Ling Hu Zichaptir's seductive eyes were filled with confusion. For the first time, his face no longer had the smile of a peerless beauty. Some things, some emotions were no longer controlled, but could only be controlled by reason. Everything was like an unfathomable storm, difficult to control. He was smart, he was cold. He had thought that in his entire life, he would never be able to meet a girl as understanding as Cheonger's sister. A girl as cute as a bird following a human. But the heavens had let him meet the Feng Jiao, who had his marriage annulled by the king of Qi. As the young master of the mighty heavenly castle, who possessed an influential position, he knew if he could summon the wind and summon the rain, commanding all the heroes of the realm. For now, just by saying that the woman in his arms was in danger of falling, for some reason, it caused his heart to be in disarray for the first time, and he was completely unable to control his fear. Chapter 71 Contest Between Men Part 3 Sumu, Yen, are you deaf? Feng Jiao was furious. She was riding her horse well. Why did she chapter race after him like a fool? Especially this stupid cousin. She even jumped onto the back of the horse that was flying so fast. Yes. He let out a long breath before he relaxed a bit. You are not allowed to ride a horse in the future. If you want to ride, you need me to take you with me. Su Mayan said in an extremely overbearing tone. Why? Fuck, why did he always have Su chapter an old habit? Did he want to control her again? No reason. Don't ask. Su Mayan only felt that it was a very enjoyable thing to sniff the fragrance from his hair. TSK, I won't listen to you. Feng Jiao ignored his words. Yao, come over here. When Xingyuan endured the jealousy in his heart, and Ari chaptered out his hand as he thought. Oh, okay. Feng Jiao thought that although when Xingyuan's stoma chapter was filled with warm water, it was easier to fool. This cousin of hers who went 3,000 miles in one go was still angry, so she was too lazy to deal with him. When Xingyuan waited for Feng Jiao to agree, and quickly rode his horse to the side of faster. You are not allowed to go. You are mine. Su Mayan just didn't want to see Feng Jiao being too close to other men. Pui, I want to do something, that is my freedom. Furthermore, you are just Feng Jiqiong's cousin. I just called out to you. Feng Jiao saw that he was getting ahead of himself and mocked. Feng Jiao, I said no, that's all. Su Mayan's riding skills were also top. In addition to his flying fast speed, when Xingyuan was really unable to catch chapter up. Xingyuan, Su Mayan has had a stroke, quickly compare with him. Feng Jiao, this little girl, thought that they were only racing. It had nothing to do with her. Ling Hu Zi chapter and Beitang Ziqian looked at Ye chapter other. Since they wanted to race horses, they could just let them compete. They were just worried that Feng Jiao wouldn't be thrown off his horse by the competitive Su Mayan. Su Mayan, you're crazy. Waving your whip like this will exhaust faster. Feng Jiao only heard the sound of wind in his ears. Wa chapter showed how fast the horse was running. Cousin Jiao, this is a contest between us men. Close your eyes and rest for a bit. Seeing that when Xingyuan was still chapter racing closely behind him, a stern look flashed across Su Mayan's eyes, but he spoke with a heavy tone. She didn't understand what kind of contests between men were like. All she knew was that she didn't want to ride with him. I want to dismount. Hurry and let me down. Seeing him grab onto the horse's stoma chapter, Feng Jiao angrily pushed him away, wanting to push him off the horse. It's just that Su Mayan could not bear with her treating him like this again and again. So he carried her and jumped off the horse. All right, you got off your horse. Are you satisfied? Su Mayan held onto her slender waist with his left hand without letting go, and didn't have a single smile on his face. What? Oh, I got off my horse, of course I'm satisfied. Feng Jiao nodded his head, and in the next moment, he used the movement T chapter technique that he had not learnt for a long time, and jumped onto the back of his flying fast horse. Feng Jiao, you lied to me? Su Mayan's expression suddenly turned cold. Before he could think about it, Feng Jiao and Wen Xingyuan had already ridden back. However, how could Su Mayan let them have their way? He quickly bent down and picked up 3 stones, and shot them towards Wen Xingyuan's mount. But after hearing the hoof's hoof, the horse's potential exploded out after being startled, and it ran even faster than flying. Su Mayan, you are despicable. Seeing that Wen Xingyuan was trying his best to control the horse, Feng Jiao immediately turned his head and cursed at Su Mayan. I am so despicable because of you. The instant her head stopped moving, Su Mayan used his qing gong to once again fly onto the back of the horse that was flying very fast. As soon as he came up, he held her tightly in his arms. No matter how she protested, it was useless. He dares to covet someone I care about. He must be tired of living. In just an instant, the bottom of Su Mayan's eyes flashed with a dark light that was bloodthirsty. It was about time for the number 1 family to chapter range hands. He did not mind using his own forces to get rid of Wen Xingyuan. Wen Xingyuan used both hands and feet, and finally controlled the horse he was riding. The only thought in his mind right now, being his rival in love, was naturally death. Qiulan horses were the domain of the 3 great families, and the one family was the number 1 clan, so their power and influence was naturally high. Therefore, when Wen Xingyuan blew the whistle, 4 black-clothed men immediately flew over. When family, how can you whistle? The leader of the group asked. From today onwards, no one from mighty heavenly castle is allowed to come. When Xingyuan's expression was dark, her thin lips slightly parted, the indifference in her eyes. Yes, when family lord. The 4 of them immediately disappeared at lightning speed. Will Xingyuan be okay? Feng Jiao muttered. It would be best if he died. After Su Mayan heard this, he felt extremely uncomfortable in his heart. He wanted to pick this little girl up and beat her up, but he couldn't bear it. I won't talk to you anymore. Boring. Feng Jiao only felt the mountain breeze get colder and colder. Aya, what a crappy place, the wind is really cold. Being blown by the wind, Feng Jiao's clothes were too thin, and she trembled in the cold mountain wind. Cousin Jiao, we've entered the forbidden area of death, Death's Valley in the autumn-tide horse farm. Su Mayan said something that almost made Feng Jiao vomit blood. Death Valley? What is that thing? Feng Jiao turned and glanced at Su Mayan, and asked him in annoyance. At this moment, a bad premonition flashed across her heart. Death Valley is not a place. It's a place where there is no return. Su Mayan frowned. The hand holding Feng Jiao was trembling. Damn it, he just got angry, and let the horse go to the wrong place. However, he would definitely try his best to protect her. Your hands are shaking. Feng Jiao pointed out his abnormality. Yaoer, don't worry, I will protect you. A chapter of gentleness that was like water flashed past Su Mayan's black eyes. A light breeze brushed across her snow-white chapteriques. Her hair that was like ink brushed across the tip of his nose, stirring up a slighted chapter. However, Su Mayan's handsome face revealed a determined smile. Would he protect her? Feng Jiao wasn't as afraid as Su Mayan had imagined. She calmly looked at the valley that was filled with white mist, and a hint of playfulness flashed in her eyes. Death Valley. She really wanted to see it for herself. When she said the word afraid, she wasn't afraid at all. She recalled back when she was in the Night Demon. She and a few other girls were thrown into the tropical rainforest by the big Miss Feng Jumei. Every day, she would fight with wild beasts and also be thrown into the Thousand Snake Hole. In her previous life, under Su chapter harsh conditions, she was confident that she could escape unscathed, let alone a Death Valley. Cousin Jiao, aren't you afraid? Su Mayan thought that Feng Jiao would at least lie on his chapterist and tremble in fear. But she did not, and there was not even a hint of fear in her eyes. WA chapter greatly surprised him. Crap, she forgot that her current identity was that of a young girl from the same sect. Thus, after being stunned for a moment, she quickly leaned on his chapterist and pretended to be scared as her small body trembled. Su Mayan, I'm afraid. Whoa, it's all your fault. Bring me to this damn place. The ancient people paid a lot of attention to the matter of the spirit possession. If they knew that she was not the real Feng Jiao, they might think of her as a monster or kill her with fire. Sorry. It's all my fault. Cousin Jiao, don't be afraid, I'm here. Su Mayan held her very tightly, and his gaze landed on the white misty clouds around them. Hold my waist tight, don't let go. Su Mayan said calmly to her. But in his heart, he actually wasn't the most confident. However, he didn't display any sign of panic. Oh, Feng Jiao said softly, and got off the horse with him, because if they still didn't get off the horse would be frightened, and they wouldn't even have a chapterance to live. Ah, Su Mayan, what are you letting go of flying speed for? Feng Jiao was a little surprised to see him carry her off his horse. Let it explore the way. Su Mayan replied with a strange expression, and a voice that was as calm as snow. Oh. Feng Jiao would never say that he was cold-blooded and emotionless, because if it was her, she would do the same. Suddenly, after half an incense stick of time, there was the sound of horse hooves. Cousin Jiao, follow me. We're leaving from the opposite direction. He definitely couldn't leave now. If he flew fast, he would definitely encounter an unknown attack. All right. Feng Jiao just responded as she was being held back heavily by Su Mayan. Feng Jiao raised her brows. Why did the flower fragrance that came from 5 kilometers ahead seem to be strange? To hasten the death of the oleander. Su Mayan's hand that was holding her trembled again, as he fearfully blurted out these 5 words. It smells so bad. Feng Jiao immediately took out his cloud silk handkerchief chapterif and covered his nose. Here, you cover your mouth and nose too. Feng Jiao deftly tore a corner of her skirt and passed it to Su Mayan. Cousin Jiao. Su Mayan looked at her with a trace of astonishment. This cousin of his was really smart. Don't talk. Seeing that he was still hesitating to accept the call, Feng Jiao immediately took the initiative to cover his mouth and nose. A trace of warmth and gentleness flowed through the bottom of Su Mayan's heart. I'll carry you. Su Mayan thought that with his deep inner strength, it would be easier for him to carry her than carry her. Taking advantage of the darkness, they had to leave Death Valley as soon as possible. And, when Feng Jiao thought of Su chapter a dangerous moment, she didn't want to act pretentious, so she climbed onto his broad back without hesitation. Su Mayan felt that at this moment, he was carrying her on his back, as if he was carrying the happiness of the entire world. Su Mayan, why are you walking slower and slower? Feng Jiao buried her head into his warm back and muttered softly, with a big head, the faster you walk, the easier it is to suffocate. Are you okay? Su Mayan asked softly in concern. I'm fine. Feng Jiao laid on his back, her heart racing 100 times. This kind of gentle Su Mayan seemed to have the smell of a loving brother, and her beautiful white face flashed with a bit of a blush. Seriously, at this time, what was she planning to do with all this money? The more they got in front of us, the more white the mist got, and occasionally the cries of unknown birds could be heard. The mournful and terrifying cries caused Su Mayan to tighten his grip on her behind his back again, and he consoled. Cousin Jiao, we can definitely leave Death Valley. Well, I believe you. Su Mayan, we can definitely walk out of here. Feng Jiao never thought that one day, the two of them would also coexist in Su chapter a peaceful manner. There was no atmosphere of conflict between them, and they even snuggled together to encourage Ye chapter other. Su Mayan, I feel that I'm getting colder and colder. Feng Jiao yawned lazily. He slowly closed his eyes and his body shivered because of the cold. They were getting closer and closer to the glacier area in Death Valley's cave. Cousin Jiao, I forbid you from sleeping. Su Mayan saw that her voice was getting softer and softer, and was suddenly shocked. Thus he put her down and embraced her, then berated her loudly. I'm cold. It's so cold. It wasn't that she wanted to sleep, it was just that it was too cold. It was as if she had gone to the Arctic ice. Cousin Jiao, wake up. Su Mayan was vexed at himself for making the horses run faster and faster, and accidentally entered Death Valley. Now that she was unconscious, his heart was as anxious as an ant on a hot pan. Feng Jiao slightly parted his lips, as the tip of his nose carried a weak aura. Cousin Jiao, Cousin Jiao. Su Mayan shook her arm with all his might, and even extended his slender white fingers to chapter his breath. You can't fall asleep. Promise me that you can't fall asleep. Do you remember that day you asked me to promise you, to kiss you? Do you remember? That day, he angrily scolded her for being shameless. That night he barged into her room, but Feng Jiao did not open his eyes to look at him, as he had expected. I forbid you to sleep. Cousin Jiao. Feng Jiao, wake up. Su Mayan took off his outer clothes, and wrapped it around her body that was trembling from the cold. The surroundings were completely white. The mist was so thick that one could vaguely hear the howls of wild beasts. Chapter 72. Take care of her. Part 1. Cousin Sister Jiao. Wake up. If you still don't wake up, I'll. Su Mayan pulled away a corner of the dress wrapped around his nose, as well as the muslin silk handkerchief wrapped around her nose. Then he loudly shouted at her. Stop being so noisy. So cold. I want to sleep. Feng Jiao felt that she was about to fall asleep. If it was in her previous life, she would definitely not be able to sleep, but after teleporting, her body was too weak. Cousin Jiao, hold on. Su Mayan hugged her very tightly. His fair and handsome face was pressed against her beautiful face, hoping to warm her up. Then, he too chaptered the cold on her lips. Su Mayan placed his hand on the side of her neck, at the same time locking her in place. His fingers moved back and forth to sense her soft and tender skin, massaging until her entire body was numb, as though it was being electrocuted, and swept through her entire body. Oh! Feng Jiao only felt that she, who was in the middle of a deep winter, was feeling a trace of score-chaptering warmth, very comfortable and very numb. Then his thin lips kissed her moist red lips, and the curls were soft as feathers, mixed with a hint of sweetness. Ah! Su Mayan, what are you doing? It can't be. Didn't he hate her? Why did he suddenly kiss her? Was he possessed? I'll help you warm your face. Su Mayan had actually lied for the first time. And the lie he told was something even he couldn't believe. Where did you get Su chapter a warm face? When Feng Jiao heard this, he found it funny, but he could feel a lot of sweetness at the bottom of his heart. Actually, Su Mayan was not as detestable as she thought. Cousin Jiao, are you still cold? Su Mayan hugged her soft and tender body, his hands sticking to the thin layer of cloth causing his throat to move uncontrollably. It's not cold anymore. But just when will we be able to leave the Death Valley? Feng Jiao looked at the white mist around him with a conflicted expression. Don't be afraid. Someone will definitely come to save us. Su Mayan let her climb onto his back once again. Let's go. Let's try to walk out. I can hear the sound of flowing water over there. Maybe we can walk out. All right. Feng Jiao wanted to take off his outer clothes and return it to him. My inner force is deep. You should wear it. Su Mayan shook his head. He was extremely afraid of her suddenly fainting earlier. Yes, Feng Jiao said softly, her lips curling up into a sweet smile. The cold mountain breeze blew away the clouds of white mist, and they saw a black pool of water. Strange, there is a glacier-like cold wind blowing here. But why is the water flowing here? Feng Jiao was very curious, so he asked. When we cross the bridge, don't look at the black pond. Su Mayan cautiously warned. Fine, I won't look, but why can't I look at that black pool? Feng Jiao still wanted to know the answer. Because that's the pond of the infernal domain. I've only read about it in ancient books. If someone were to cross the bridge and glance at the black pool of water, that person would be possessed. I wonder if this legend is true or not. Su Mayan did not know whether this legend was real or not. Then we should rather believe it. Let's go. After we cross that bridge, we might even REA chapter the exit. Feng Jiao urged him. She didn't want to stay in this Death Valley, where there was only a vast expanse of whiteness. Then don't look. If you're scared, just hug my neck tightly. Su Mayan said indifferently, a trace of trembling and fear flowing through his voice. How did you suddenly become so concerned about me? And so gentle? Feng Jiao originally only thought about it, but he couldn't help but say it out loud. Can't I care about you? Hearing her words, Su Mayan was startled. When had he ever cared about women other than Feng Jiqiong? It was just that Su Mayan was very shrewd in some aspects, but was very slow in emotions. Very good. Let's go, let's not talk anymore. We don't need to fall into the infernal domain's pond. Seeing that he had actually turned around to look at her, Feng Jiao's handsome face seemed a little blurry under the faint white fog. But he was still as handsome as before. If you really fall in, you have to hug my neck tightly, you hear me? Su Mayan worriedly said it again. Got it. Feng Jiao couldn't say that he was long-winded. He was doing it for her own good, and for her sake. Although this man's mouth was a little venomous back then, he was outstanding in other aspects. It's good that you know this. Cousin Jiao, believe me, I can definitely take you out of Death Valley. Su Mayan was worried that she would be scared, hence he spoke with strength. Carrying Feng Jiao on his back, Su Mayan walked up the white wooden bridge step by step with steady steps. The bridge was crooked, and as he walked, Su Mayan's eyes were closed. As if a century had passed, they passed through the infernal domain's pond. When they turned back to look at the black waters, they had already disappeared. But there was only a single white wooden bridge. Mast Phoenix Bridge. When Su Mayan saw the name of the white bridge, his expression greatly chapter-changed. It's just the name of a bridge. Why are you so loud? Feng Jiao was very surprised. She felt that Su Mayan was making a big fuss out of nothing. According to the ancient texts, if a young lady were to see the concealing Phoenix Bridge, she would be the fortune of the entire world. Su Mayan placed her down and looked at her thoughtfully. After pondering for a long time, he finally told her that he knew. You mean I am the queen's destiny? After Feng Jiao heard it, he laughed heartily. Yes. Su Mayan nodded his head, because that was what the ancient books said. What if it was a man who saw the bridge? Feng Jiao laughed. He looked at Su Mayan calmly, and wanted to see how he would answer. It's the fate of Emperor Star. Su Mayan whispered into her ear, just because he heard the sound of horse hooves nearby. Tisk, that's not allowed. The ancients had nothing to do after they had eaten their fill, so they lied for nothing. Feng Jiao did not believe it. Cousin sister Jiao, when you see Beitang Ziqian and the others later, you can't say that we saw the masked phoenix bridge. Can you remember that? Su Mayan did not forget that the imperial family had already started to fear the power of the mighty heavenly castle. A few days ago, he had already lost several transactions with the Xiliang Kingdom's Yuluo villa. Oh, then let me take a look. This bridge is truly strange. Just as Feng Jiao was about to turn around and look again, the words on the white wooden bridge had already disappeared. Strange, those two words are missing. Feng Jiao said as he gave a close look. Only the fated will be able to see. Su Mayan's words were like Buddha's dictum. You must remember, no one is allowed to say it. He warned again, his slightly strained voice tinged with determination and worry. I know, I won't tell anyone. It was so good that we shared the hardships of the past. Rest assured. Am I Su Chapter a big mouth? She nodded affirmatively and retorted with a question. Feng Jiao was not a fool. If she really did say it, the old emperor would definitely bring her into the palace to be the empress. She thought about marrying the old emperor, who was so old that goosebumps almost fell all over her. So someone as smart as her definitely wouldn't talk about the masked phoenix bridge. Are they really here to save us? Feng Jiao felt that the sound of the horse's hooves was strange. Gradually, the sound of the horse's hooves got closer. Su Mayan's face became even more gloomy. It's not them who are here to save us. We've met with trouble. Feng Jiao looked towards where he was looking at, only to see an armored headless corpse walking step by step towards Feng Jiao's direction. From a distance, the sound was really like the sound of horses' hooves, but after a closer look, it was extremely strange. In the misty white mist, pink blood dripped from the headless body of the headless armor. The icy wind was rustling like a glacier, emitting a cold air and a slightly rotten smell. Headless armor corpse. Su Mayan, what are you standing there for? Here amongst the two, Su Mayan's qing gong was better than hers, so she naturally had to urge him to bring her away quickly. Cousin Jiao, don't move. I'll go and fight him for a few rounds. If I can't beat him, then you first have to think of a way to hide. Calm. Su Mayan Ari chaptered out his hands and wrapped them around her little hands, warming them up as he faintly sighed. I understand. You be careful too. When Feng Jiao saw his burning gaze on her, her heart involuntarily jumped. Therefore, Su Mayan used a bizarre set of palms to force the headless armor corpse to attack. But no matter how many times he attacked the headless armor corpse, the headless armor master became more and more ferocious, shooting out countless of silver needles from within the armor. Just like a fairy scattering flowers, a silver needle appeared on Feng Jiao's left shoulder. She calmly looked as if she wanted to remove the needle, but was stopped by the look in Su Mayan's eyes. Ha ha ha, you juniors, you actually dare to barge into the Death Valley. All of you are dead for sure. A sinister voice came out from the headless armored corpse. Su Mayan, be careful. Feng Jiao saw that the headless armored corpse wanted to harm Su Mayan again, so she got angry and quickly moved, turning her body agilely to pull Su Mayan away. You're blocking me from hitting the headless armor. S face revealed displeasure. Didn't he tell her to dodge further? How could she be so foolish? But he didn't mean to blame her, just worried that her wounds would fester. Stop fighting, we can't beat him. You see, he is wearing armor. Maybe he has an indestructible body, so we might as well use our wits. Feng Jiao glared at him as her eyes flickered with a trace of craftiness. How? Su Mayan looked at her doubtfully. Chapter 72 Take Care of Her Part 2 Come here. Feng Jiao told him to get closer to her, and a very refreshing fragrance filled his nose. Su Mayan frowned, and when he heard Feng Jiao's idea, he nodded his head. This method works, but if we fail, you and I might never be able to get out of this Death Valley. Su Mayan was worried. TSK, don't be so pessimistic. Weren't you encouraging me just now? Feng Jiao bit his lower lip and said angrily. This time he felt a piercing pain from his left shoulder. What's wrong? Does it hurt? His brows were chaptered in a pattern. Don't worry about the wound on my left shoulder. Let's move. Feng Jiao took the initiative to hold on to Su Mayan's big hand, and then, once again put on the veil silk handkerchief. and a corner of her skirt. The two quickly slipped through the forest. Of course, the headless armored corpse was chapter racing closely behind them. And just as quickly, the two of them worked together to pin chapter the petals of the oleander into powder, and quickly scattered them all over the headless armored corpse. Cousin Jiao, it seems useful. He fell. Su Mayan glanced at Feng Jiao, praising her in his eyes. Use your palm to hit that smaller oleander tree. I'm useful. Feng Jiao nodded. Following W chapter, she commanded Su Mayan to pull up a small oleander tree beside him. Oh, Su Mayan did not ask any further questions, as he was extremely satisfied with the intelligence she had displayed. Under the hazy white mist, the emerald green oleander was even more mysterious and vibrant. Be careful, don't smell the oleander. Feng Jiao pulled out the white crystal jade hairpin, took a bit of oleander juice, and then activated the meshaptranism of the white crystal jade hairpin. If he didn't kill the headless armored corpse this time, he would make it scream in pain. Meishi, was an expert in poison concoction. All right, let's wait here for the headless armored corpse to turn into powder. Feng Jiao's eyes flashed with an ice-cold fierceness. She wrapped the head of the white crystal jade hairpin with a muslin handkerchief and shot the sharp end of the silk handkerchief into the heart of the headless armored corpse. Ayo! A deafening scream almost shattered the eardrums of Feng Jiao and the others. This sound is so unpleasant to listen to. Feng Jiao covered her ears. Because her left shoulder was injured, she could only cover one ear with one hand. Soon the headless armored corpse collapsed and stopped moving. This continued for almost an hour. However, the hissing sound was still resounding in his ears. At this time, Su Mayan seemed to have seen through her difficulty, and immediately covered her ears with his hands. The warm temperature covered their faces with a layer of red. Cousin Jiao, when did you learn how to poison? Su Mayan suddenly felt that he had never understood Feng Jiao. I saw an ancient book on refining poisons. I got some when I was interested, but I was lazy later on, so I stopped. Today, when we were in danger, maybe I exploded with my potential. By the way, do your eyes still hurt? Feng Jiao saw that his left eye had turned into a panda's eye, and felt a bit bad. She was really, as he said, she had been a bit too harsh on him before. You only know how to care about me. Seeing that she was concerned about him, Su Mayan immediately and arrogantly turned his face to the other side. His lips curled up a little. He thought to himself, she still cares about me a lot. And after thinking about it like this, he became happy in his heart. I'm sorry. Who asked you to be so overbearing before? Feng Jiao raised her slender hand and rubbed the area around his eyes. All right, you know your mistake, so be it. Stop rubbing it, it hurts like hell. Su Mayan purposely pressed down on him, causing him to cry out in pain. Look, a fiery red snake crawled out of the headless armor. Is it a red refined snake? Feng Jiao looked at this strange scene and started to feel sorry for his white crystal jade hairpin. Currently, the hairpin was bravely piercing into the headless armored corpse's heart. It looks a little similar. Su Mayan nodded. Cousin Sister Jiao, what are you going to do? He was worried that the snake was poisonous. So what if the snake bit her? What if the snake was poisoned? Damn it, she still had the silver needle on her left shoulder. I can't get hurt again. To chapter the snake and get the snake's gall. Feng Jiao smiled sweetly, her smile dazzling. I won't let you take the risk, I'll go. I'll help you get the snake gall. Su Mayan felt that it would be better if he went. Alright then, be careful. Feng Jiao never thought that Su Mayan would chapter-change his attitude so quickly towards her. So Feng Jiao stayed quietly at the other side, quietly chaptering him fight against the snake. She was actually a little worried in her heart. What if Su Mayan was bitten by a snake? How would she be able to get out of Death Valley later? It was just that Su Mayan was chapter more powerful than she had imagined. He suddenly attacked the fiery red snake. Chapter was as thick as a bowl, and in an instant, hit the snake until its body trembled, and its tail swung towards Su Mayan with a lightning speed. Its eyes were fierce and cold, its mouth agape, and its white fangs aimed straight at Su Mayan's wrist. Su Mayan, be careful. Feng Jiao shouted anxiously. She was afraid that he would be in trouble. Su Mayan nimbly dodged it. and then used his elbow to stroke the snake belly of the scarlet snake. In the time it took for a spark to fly, he quickly pulled out the white crystal jade hair that was nailed into the headless armor, and his fingers nimbly moved to stab towards the abdomen of the scarlet snake. The snake's abdomen had been cut open. A huge oval-shaped brown snake gall rolled down the ground, emitting a fishy smell. "Jiao, why do you need snake gall?" Su Mayan became curious and asked. "Naturally, it is to treat the wound on my left shoulder." Feng Jiao calmly pulled out the silver needle on her left shoulder, but it had entered very deep. She frowned, perspiration trickling down her forehead as she endured the pain, and pulled it out. "Stop trying to be brave." Seeing her like this, Su Mayan couldn't help but sweat for her. Therefore, Su Mayan took the initiative to cut open the snake gall for her, and used some bile to smear on her. Miraculously, the snake gall juice had an extremely good healing effect, and very quickly the wound healed. "Thank you." Feng Jiao thanked him politely. "Don't thank me, just don't beat me up next time." Su Mayan immediately used a corner of his robe to wipe away the white crystal jade hairpin, and helped her put it back on her hair. "This hairpin is rather exquisite. Do you like white crystal jewelry?" he asked casually. Yes. It was given to her by Wei Yang, so she naturally liked it. It was just that she hadn't seen him for a long time. "Cousin Jiao, if you like this type of jewelry, how about we go back and carefully order a few of these for you?" he asked, rubbing his eye-chaptering eyes. "Okay, you have to send me off. You are not allowed to accept my silver." Feng Jiao would be a fool if he could not take advantage of them. She joked with him. Then let's hurry up and leave. The mist is thinner over there, so it's more likely to be the exit." When Su Mayan saw her enchapterating smile, he could not help but be shocked. Just as Su Mayan expected, the place with the scant mist was the Death Valley's exit. The two of them looked at Ye Chapter Other and laughed. They had finally made it out of Death Valley alive. "Luckily I was able to get out. If I were to be lost inside, it would be very difficult to get out." Su Mayan had a feeling that he had survived a calamity. Why? Was it that serious? Feng Jiao didn't think that the Death Valley was scary. Because at night, the white mist will turn into black mist and the miasma will deepen. Therefore, it will be extremely difficult to smoothly walk out of the Death Valley. Su Mayan stood with his hands behind his back and sighed. "All right, enough, I'm hungry." Feng Jiao's stoma chapter growled nonstop, and she shyly placed both her hands on top of her stoma chapter. At this moment, she had a kind of silly, innocent feeling. "Cousin Sister Jiao, can I call you Yaoa?" That. The 4 words are too long to say. Su Mayan looked at her beautiful face, his heart thumping, so he could not help but ask her. Her voice was soft and long, like a light feather brushing against his skin, very pleasant and pleasant to hear. "Sure." No matter what, the two of them had experienced the predicament of the Death Valley. Feng Jiao had also chapter-arranged his opinion of her. Thus she nodded her head lightly. To her, a name was just a code name. "Yaoa, I heard them looking for us. Let's leave this place quickly and reunite with them." Su Mayan's ears were extremely sharp. He could already hear the clear sounds of horse hooves mixed together with the uniform sounds of footsteps, as well as the barking of dogs. He was inwardly alarmed. Why were there uniform footsteps? Could it be that a guard team had been dispatched? But W chapter Prince's guard would it be? And barking? Could it be the king of Jing? Su Mayan guessed in his heart. It was almost dusk. When Feng Jiao looked at the sky, she immediately became anxious. Damn it, now that she had agreed to meet again, would Li Jinran be angry? "Yaoa, are you alright?" Why did he hear King of Jing Xianyuan Haoyu's voice? Very good. It could be said that he was safe. Feng Jiao thought. Why would Xianyuan Haoyu appear in the Autumn Wave stable? "What happened to your shoulder?" When Xingyuan asked, "Do you want me to show it to you?" "No need." Feng Jiao shook her head. She had already dealt with it herself. She did not want to trouble others. Young Master Su is here too? But what happened to your eyes?" Hearing her light tone, Xianyuan Haoyu thought that the injury shouldn't be too heavy, and he thus felt at ease. Then, as if he had just seen Su Mayan, he smiled at Su Mayan and greeted him. When he saw Su Mayan's eyes, a hint of playfulness flashed past them. Could this have been beaten by Yaoa? Only now did the others notice why Su Mayan had been so secretive before, and did not show his face. Yeah, Yaoer and I rode on horses and entered the Death Valley by accident. These eyes. Ugh. He accidentally injured himself. Thus, Su Mayan looked at Feng Jiao meaningfully as worry flashed past her eyes. The wound on her shoulder should be okay, right? He didn't care about his eyes at all. Men who fall in love are idiots anyway. Su Mayan was about to enter. Why would His Highness bring his guards to the Autumn Wave stable? Could it be that His Highness King of Jing is also here for the horse race? Su Mayan laughed. That panda, I was not one bit affected by his chapter arm. It was only because I could not find your figures that I managed to get someone to report to His Highness the King of Jing. He brought the dog Seer chapter squad here. Beidang Ziqian looked at Feng Jiao, and at the moment, she was still wearing his outer robes. A hint of surprise flashed across his eyes. Su Mayan had really set his eyes on a woman that the King of Qi did not want. Chapter 73 Part 1 Stop. Su Mayan suddenly called out to Wan Sanzi, telling him to stop the carriage. Young Master Su? This is not even the mighty heavenly castle yet. Wan Sanzi was curious. Why did the young Master Su get confused? Parking here? Someone is following us, Su Mayan said indifferently. He then opened the curtain and gently jumped down the carriage. Why are you following me? Su Mayan's voice pierced through his internal energy, causing the leaves on the trees around him to rustle. You're coveting someone else's item. A black shadow of sword chi shot forward like a rainbow towards Su Mayan. What? Can you explain it clearly? Su Mayan looked at the tall side of the man's face, and for a moment, he didn't know who he was. Oomph. The black handsome shadow's blade shone with a blue light under the bright moonlight. The sword chi that was infused with inner strength shot out towards Su Mayan. If it was in the past, Su Mayan did not need to dodge to deal with the incoming person, but today, he had spent 2 mu chapter of his innate chi in the Death Valley. Thus, other than dodging, he used a profound movement Ti chapter technique to fly away. However, no matter how hard he tried to dodge, the sword chi was not as powerful as that man's sword chi. Young Master Su. Wan Sanzi was so scared that he was dazed by the amount of blood on Su Mayan's right shoulder. You should be glad that you did not cut your right arm. Remember, do not 2 chapter anything that is not yours. The handsome figure's voice was as cold as ice. However, Su Mayan did not let him succeed. He struck back fiercely with his palm, causing blood to ooze out of the corner of his mouth. The hand that was chaptering his heart trembled, and he attempted to jump away. Who are you? Why did you harm this young master? When Su Mayan heard the man's words before he left, he was extremely angry. Ha ha ha. That person's face was completely expressionless. Su Mayan thought, could it be that his skin was fake? That he was a human skin mask? After the man finished laughing, he looked at Su Mayan with his wild and cold eyes, and then laughed madly and left. Young Master Su, Young Master Su. Wan Sanzi's face was pale as he looked at Su Mayan's bloodied right arm. Quick, take me to see your big miss. Su Mayan thought that if he did not quickly tend to his wounds, his right arm would really be crippled. And this place was extremely far from the mighty heavenly castle, so he could only return to the Prime Minister's mansion to look for Feng Jiao to treat the wound on his right arm. Oh okay. Wan Sanzi immediately went forward to support Su Mayan and helped him up onto the carriage. He sat on the carriage and rushed back to Prime Minister's mansion. Feng Jiao never would have thought that Su Mayan would come again so soon after she took a bath, not to mention that he had brought injury with him. I say, cousin, did you offend someone and they want to chapter off your arm as a warning? As Feng Jiao helped him treat the wound on his right arm, she also coldly teased him. That's not the case. Su Mayan gently shook his head. He too was puzzled. If it was something related to the trade, the person would not warn him like that. It was truly strange. Could it be that you forcefully took away my little sister's innocence so? Feng Jiao continued to guess without reserve. Yaoer, stop guessing, I'm hungry. This little girl definitely had nothing to do after eating her fill, so she said it all. Instead, she ate roasted chapterakan, and perhaps even ate a lot of delicious food after returning home. Now that he was a man, the 5 Viscera Temple began to protest, and she was still beside him, talking sarcastically. All right, I don't have any delicacies here. Hongmi, go bring young Master Su a bowl of porridge. Feng Jiao's words almost made Su Mayan spit blood in anger. She was 13 years old, had a clean background, a pretty face, and was well-educated and well-trained. Feng Jiao was very satisfied with her training. Chapter was why he was able to see that she did not let Hongmi leave, but rather asked her to wait on him at the side instead. When Hongmi left, Su Mayan glared at Feng Jiao. I'm so good that I bought you a roasted chapterakan to eat. Yet you're treating me to a bowl of porridge? Su Mayan muttered in dissatisfaction. It's good that you have something to eat. Just be satisfied with what you have. Feng Jiao lazily glanced at him, standing up and pouring himself a cup of green tea. Ziyin, what did the doctor say about third young Miss's injuries? Feng Jiao asked Ziyin, who had just returned from gathering information. The doctor has seen. The third young miss is only injured, you just need to recuperate. Ziyin lowered his hands and reported. Then did third miss perform any unusual actions? Feng Jiao asked again. He felt that it was a little strange. Then was that stab really just an injury? The third miss is calm and composed, as if nothing had happened. She asked the housekeeper to serve her. Ziyin said indifferently. She was also puzzled. Under normal circumstances, when her mother was being forced into a corner by the Guan and Chiu Academy, she would not cry or make a ruckus. This was truly too strange. She has developed intelligence after suffering some setbacks. Send someone to keep an eye on her. And you need to find out about Jiyu's background as soon as possible. Feng Jiao knew that Ziyin had a way to do all of these, so she did not hide it from her. Yes, Mississippi. Ziyin nodded. All of this was just a piece of cake for her. This porridge is really fragrant. Su Mayan waited for Hongmi to bring it over, then elegantly tasted it with a spoon. The taste is rechapter, smooth and delicious. Yaoer, you really know how to enjoy yourself. If it's delicious, then eat more. Feng Jiao laughed and then yawned. Therefore, Su Mayan's appetite was great, and he ate 3 bowls in one go. Yaoer, I'll be going back now. Su Mayan unwillingly glanced at Feng Jiao. He thought that Feng Jiao would at least say something to keep him here. But who knew that the little girl had already closed her eyes and was dreaming of Duke Zhou. Ziyun, Hongmi, when your young miss wakes up, tell her that no matter what, I will take care of her. All right, farewell. Su Mayan chaptered as Feng Jiao laid on the soft ku chapter, before turning his head and leaving the begonia garden in 3 steps. Sister Ziyun, could it be that the young Master Su has set his eyes on our young miss? She whispered. Hongmi, it's best if we don't talk about our master's matter. We should focus on our own affairs. Ziyin kindly reminded her. Yes, thank you Sister Ziyin for the help. Then I will take down the utensils and go to bed. Hongmi knew that Ziyin was the young miss' personal maid, and would definitely have a way to have the young miss sleep on her bed later. Okay, go ahead. Ziyin smiled and nodded, but she looked at Feng Jiao with an appreciative expression. Why would Su Chapter, a smart girl, have an intimate relationship with so many men? But she didn't understand her master's intentions. Why did you want her to stand by the side of the young miss in the place of the real Ziyin? Could it be that there was something on her that this grandpa cared about? Ziyin, is it because this lady is too beautiful? Feng Jiao astonishingly opened his eyes, shocking Ziyin. Therefore, Ziyin quickly kneeled down and said, First miss, you misunderstood. Ziyin didn't mean it that way. But because Hongmi had asked that question just now, this servant had taken a closer look at eldest Mississippi. Oh my God, the young miss hadn't fallen asleep yet. I'm resting with my eyes closed. I never said I was asleep. Feng Jiao said in a low voice as he took her hand and elegantly stood up, looking down at Ziyin. Ziyin, tell the person behind you, I am not a woman he can control. Feng Jiao coldly looked at the kneeling Ziyin, and after finishing his cold words, he walked into the room like a lotus flower. Ziyin was startled. What does eldest miss mean by this? Should she go see me again? However, I did not summon her. If she were to go, I will be punished. Forget it. First miss had been good to him. It was better for her to stay by her side for the time being. After thinking about it, Ziyin got up from the ground, closed the door and walked out. Feng Jiao lay on the bed, unable to fall asleep no matter what. As she thought about how Su Mayan had kissed her, her face burned intensely hot. However, she naturally liked Su Mayan as a beautiful man. Thinking of this, she felt relieved. At this time, Situ Yele would definitely not come tonight. Thus, Feng Jiao immediately got up, put on a set of white clothes, tied his hair up in a simple bun, and lightly jumped out of the window without a sound. After confirming that no one had noticed, she used her light skill to fly to Tsuha house. "Eldest miss, why are you here so late at night?" Why did Tao Zhixian jump in fright when he saw the white-clothed Feng Jiao? "I'm not here to look for you. I'm here for Li Jinran," Feng Jiao said with a smile. He never thought that the appearance of this hour would scare the Uncle Xian. "Alright, since that's the case, then go quickly." Seeing that Feng Jiao was not in a rush, Tao Zhixian decided to take care of his own matters. Under Feng Jiao's instructions, the Tsuha house had become the first inn in the Nanshao kingdom to serve him 24 hours a day. Feng Jiao nodded his head. His profound rippling steps became more and more wonderful, to the point that he managed to arrive at Qing Lian Little Foundation within the time it takes for an incense stick to burn. At the moment, the candles in Li Jinran's room were flickering, showing that he was still awake. After Feng Jiao knocked on the door, he opened the door with the wooden wheel chapter. "Jiao, why would you be here at this time?" Li Jinran opened the door and saw that it was actually Feng Jiao. She looked at her gently with a few surprises. Her clear and handsome face was not as pale and weak as when he first saw her, but was slightly flushed, like the red morning glow dazzling. "What is it? Aren't you happy to see me?" Feng Jiao smiled at him and then teased. "That's not what I mean. I'm talking about you, a young lady who has yet to leave the pavilion. You shouldn't have Mu chapter of an impact coming to my place at this hour." Li Jinran cared about her. "I didn't have any good influence from the start, but now I don't want to stay overnight." Feng Jiao gave him a comforting look. "I came over to take a look at you. Then I won't be coming over tomorrow," Feng Jiao said again. "Why isn't he coming again tomorrow?" Li Jinran didn't know what had happened to him, but he felt that he hadn't seen her for a day, as if it had been 3 years. "I have something to do." Feng Jiao bent down, leaned forward and lightly pecked Li Jinran's lips. "I just came to see you. Then I'll be going back." "Jiao." Li Jinran's mind was shaken by Feng Jiao's flower-like smile. He looked at her in a daze, and the 2 chapter of his lips made his beautiful face unnaturally red. "Jinran, do you miss me?" Today, she hadn't come in broad daylight, so he must have missed her. Thinking of this, her small face brimmed with a sweet smile. And Li Jinran was very honest. After making a sound, her face blushed even more. "Jinran is good, hee." Feng Jiao was very happy. She once again kissed his soft and tender lips, and her small hands mischapteriously 2-chaptered his chapterist. "Ugh," said Jiao. Li Jinran let out a light snort, opened her lips slightly, and allowed Feng Jiao's lilac tongue to slowly probe in, slowly responding to her kiss. It was as if they were just kissing to feel chapter others' feelings. After a while, Feng Jiao let go of him. She buried her head in his lap and raised her head to look at him. His eyes sparkled as he stared at the person beneath him. His chapter-arming face was filled with smiles. Li Jinran smiled warmly like a spring breeze, raising her hands to rub her shiny black hair. Looking at Feng Jiao's beautiful face with a smile that was like a flower, her heart was filled with joy. "It feels good to kiss." Feng Jiao teased him with a smile on her lips. Their gazes met, and smiles of satisfaction could be seen on their faces. Chapter 73 Part 2. The sun is about to rise. "Let's hurry up and go back," Li Jinran said as he looked out at the sky. "The treatment I taught you, just let Ban Xiao follow it. Wait for me to have the time to come." "Okay, then I'll come see you again." Feng Jiao reluctantly stood up, and with her head tilted to the side, she looked at his impeccable appearance. At this moment, the moonlight shone down on Li Jinran's body, and her pink clothes were breathtakingly beautiful, with a faint elegance, as if her beautiful face was coated with a layer of silver light. Chapter was dazzling to behold. "Alright, be careful on your way." Li Jinran looked at her, and his gaze landed on his legs once again. He really wished that he could stand up, and that he could send her back home this way. And don't worry, my light skill is not bad to learn right now. When Feng Jiao saw his lowered eyes, she knew what he was thinking, and so she opened her mouth to console him. Alright Jiao, go back. He smiled and looked up at her again. Feng Jiao opened the door and quickly left. On a cloudy rainy day 3 days later. Perhaps it was because Feng Jiao was addicted to sleep, but even after almost noon, she still had not woken up. Eldest miss, are you up yet? Ziyan knocked the door and shouted. What's wrong? What happened? I'm sleeping well. After Feng Jiao heard this, he opened his eyes in a daze and shouted. First miss, old Madam Sita asked to see you. Ziyan heard Feng Jiao and pushed the door open. Old Madam Situ? Is she Situ Yele's mother? Feng Jiao propped himself up, rubbed his eyes and said indifferently. You're right, does eldest miss want to see her? Ziyan asked. No. What's so good about an old woman? Furthermore, she didn't have any intention of marrying into the Situ family. Wait, do you know what she's here for? Feng Jiao had a bad premonition in his heart. She has a scroll in her hand, and her expression is indifferent. She didn't say why, but she definitely wants to see you. Ziyan reported to her after he carefully recalled it. Alright, see you then. Could it be that the heavens could not bear to see her, Meishi, sleeping lazily? She came to see me in Su chapter a heavy rain. Could it be for him? Feng Jiao thought for a while, then muttered to himself. Feng Jiao washed up and dressed, and after eating breakfast, he leisurely walked towards the Begonia Gardens flower hall. Old Madam Situ Yin Xinju looked at Feng Jiao, who was slowly walking towards him, and a look of surprise and admiration flashed past his eyes. What kind of exquisite face was that? Those dreamlike clear eyes were blinking. Those half-lidded eyelashes curved in a beautiful arc like a half-opened silk fan. The wings of her nose were straight and delicate, like tender and red lips that were covered in rain, and her mouth emitted an extremely tempting force when it opened and closed. Her fair and flawless chapteriques were suffused with a layer of faint redness, like the dazzling fragrance of ripe chapterberries. This girl was breathtakingly beautiful, shockingly beautiful. Amidst the beauty, there was also a sense of purity that couldn't be ignored, causing one to unknowingly sink deep into it and sink into depravity. No wonder why Layer had covered the entire room with her portraits. It turned out that she had her own chapter arm. It was just that they did not meet the right person at the right time. Thinking about this, Yin Xinju lightly sighed. Princess Lingxi was crying and had a fever because of Layer's rejection. Even now, she was still stuck in her sickbed, but Layer didn't want to take a look at her. It seemed like she had made up her mind. Just as Yin Xinju was sizing up Feng Jiao also started to size her up carefully. She was full of energy and had a faint smile on her face. She looked very friendly, but she was also quite distant from people. A medallion with the width of 3 fingers rolled onto the side of a goldfish daikon. Inside it, there was the embroidered coat with a stone blue bird-like chapterosanthemum pattern, a dark horseface skirt. The hem of the skirt was embroidered with complicated lace, and the head was adorned with an extremely fine onyx gold hairpin. The outfit was really luxurious and quiet, with a noble air, gentleness and elegance. Not like someone who would have difficulty with others. Feng Jiao was curious. But why would she come to see her in the rain? Old Madam Situ, you have waited for a long time. Feng Jiao gently smiled and said, Miss Feng, this old woman has something to discuss with you. Can I ask your personal little girl to step down? Yin Xinju also smiled in return, but there was a bit of dignity in her demeanor. Ziyan, you can leave for now. I have a chapterat with old Madam Situ. Feng Jiao gently waved his hand at Ziyan. Here. Yin Xinju stood up from his tea chapterer's chapterer and handed the scroll over to Feng Jiao. Access. Feng Jiao was startled. Why would she give her the scroll painting? What do you mean? Feng Jiao asked curiously. For you. She smiled slightly, but it did not chapter her eyes. What kind of painting is it? And it was so mysterious. You'll know when you open it. Yin Xinju lifted the teacup's lid, and elegantly took a sip. She frowned. The Begonia Gardens tea was a little astringent. Therefore, Feng Jiao extended out her slender fingers and slowly unfurled the scroll. However, The beauty in the painting had a faint smile on her face. The alluring allure of the flower blossomed, as well as the beauty capable of toppling empires. But why did it seem so familiar? Why did the beauty on the painting seem so Mu chapter like herself? Feng Jiao was puzzled for a moment. Who exactly drew her chapter arm? You're surprised, right? Yan Xinju asked indifferently. Feng Jiao nodded his head. He did not know what was the meaning of her asking this question. It was drawn by layer. Yan Xinju looked at Feng Jiao with a measuring gaze. Yele drew it. Feng Jiao was startled for a moment. Why did Situ Yele draw her on the scroll? Yes. Yan Xinju nodded. Then she spoke out. Miss Feng, do you know that Yele and Princess Lingxi are already engaged? If the royal family were to find out that the future prince consort's heart is with another woman, how would the royal family treat her? Old Madam Situ, I think you are wrong. And the mistake is outrageous. Hearing her words, Feng Jiao finally understood that old Madam Situ hoped for her to retreat after learning of the difficulties. What's wrong? Could it be that the woman that my layer likes is not you? Yan Xinju's gaze fell upon the drawing scroll. W chapter contained an extraordinary number of painting skills. Old Madam Situ, don't be anxious, just listen to my explanation. That's right. Yele likes me, but I have no intention of marrying into Situ family. That's why I said you are wrong. Feng Jiao was not an idiot. She gave up the whole forest because of a tree so early. Don't want to marry into the Situ family? The Situ family, did not even let her enter the Situ family. How would the Situ family dare to let a woman he didn't want enter the sect? Is that true? Yan Xinju still could not believe it. Thinking about how handsome Layer was, how could Miss Feng not fall for Layer? This was somewhat strange. Seriously, Feng Jiao smiled. If she were to marry him, would she need to send people to spread the rumors about her being infected with an evil disease? Since that's the case, then I'll have to trouble you to not meet Yele again. Otherwise his future would be ruined. Oh right, Princess Lingxi has been ill for a few days, and Layer is still not willing to visit her. Please go and advise him, no matter what, to consider his future prospects. Yan Xinju let out a sigh of relief, and then she seemed to think of something else. After she finished speaking, she held her forehead as if she had a hiatachap tear. Don't meet Yele again? She didn't want to see him, but he often visited her room at night, making it hard for her to guard against him. Xianyuan Lingxi sick? Situ Yele did not go to visit? This had nothing to do with her. Since old Madam Situ wants me to not meet him anymore, then I will have to ask him to personally go and advise. Fine. Since you are his mother, he has to listen to you. Weren't the ancient people very filial? It was precisely because he refused to listen to me and went to the palace to visit a patient that I came to see you in the rain. Old Madam Situ sighed. But you can't persuade him. How can I persuade him to move? Feng Jiao smiled as he shook his head. He didn't seem like a man who would chapter arrange his own decision for a woman. Please go and advise him, Miss Feng. Seeing Feng Jiao's relaxed appearance, Yan Xinju suddenly dropped to his knees in front of her. Old Madam Situ, you can't do this. If she kneeled to her, wouldn't that mean that Feng Jiao would lose his life? Therefore, she hurriedly helped Yan Xinju up. She clearly didn't want her to see her son again, but now she still needed to help her persuade him. Then you agreed? Her eyes were filled with pleasant surprise as she looked at Ning Xuema. I'll just treat it as Yele's last time. He had pestered her so Mu chapter that she couldn't sleep at night. She was just worried that there was no way to make him leave on his own accord. What a coincidence, Xianyuan Lingxi was actually sick, and was really sick at that time. Just what was she going to say to Situ Yele when she saw him later? Good chapter, sorry for troubling you. Yan Xinju let out a long sigh and looked at her gratefully. No need to thank me so Mu chapter. I still don't know if Yele is willing to listen to my advice. Feng Jiao did not dare to guarantee it. As long as you are willing to persuade me. At this time, he should be in Songha restaurant. She nodded. In that case, this old one will return home first. Leaving the painting to Feng Jiao, she smiled at her, turned around, and with the two girls who were standing by the entrance, stepped into the swirling rain. Eldest miss, the rain is light. Do you want to go out today? Seeing that the old Madam Situ had left, Ziyan walked slowly towards him. "An, if you want to make a trip to Songhe restaurant, you should go with me." Feng Jiao nodded and smiled. Seems like he would finish Luan chapter outside today. Does eldest miss want to chapter range into a set of traveling clothes? Ziyan glanced at Feng Jiao's white robes and asked. "No, let's go." Feng Jiao waved her hand, and she smiled confidently. No matter what clothes she wore, it would be extremely eye-catching. Chapter 74 Part 1 Situ Yele immediately stopped, his eyes filled with rage. Feng Jiao's small heart jumped. This voice. It must be him. He must be back. Sigh, he didn't chapter the calendar when I went out. Situ Yele turned his head to look. The other party was breathing deeply, and their killing intent was dense, only to see a blue-clothed man standing in front of the window on the second floor. If this person was not Yi Weiyang, then who else could it be? "Weiyang," Feng Jiao gently called out. However, her hand was still being held by Situ Yele. "Yi Weiyang, your hidden weapons are really top-notch. Chapter. Situ Yele frowned. Why is it him again? The last time he was by the Great Jade Lake, wasn't it him who had suddenly appeared, causing him to be unable to get along with Yao? "Yao, come with me." Yi Weiyang coldly glanced at Situ Yele, as his ice-cold gaze looked at him and her. Feng Jiao thought about how he should handle this matter. Therefore, she was slightly stunned and did not dare to look into Yi Weiyang's eyes. "Yao is my woman, she will not follow you." Situ Yele might not have had chapter confidence in the past, but ever since he had a good relationship with Feng Jiao, he was extremely confident that Feng Jiao would definitely follow him. "Is that so? Yao?" Hearing Situ Yele's words, Yi Weiyang pointed his feet and flew over with the spirit serpent sword in hand. His body was tall and landed steadily in front of Feng Jiao. I. Feng Jiao looked at this and looked at that, his heart tangled. "Yao, you tell him that you and I have already decided to spend the rest of our lives together. Just let him give up." So what if it was an assassin? This was his, Situ Yele's territory. He felt that he had nothing to be afraid of. A private marriage? Give up? Ha ha ha. Don't fool yourself. Yao, tell him, who was your first man? When Yi Weiyang first heard Situ Yele's words, he was extremely displeased, and even had the impulse to kill Situ Yele. However, after thinking that he was Feng Jiao's first man, he became even more unyielding. "Yao, what does he mean by this?" Situ Yele turned and looked at her. "Do not bring up this matter again. If anyone mentions this again, then I will never want to see him again." Feng Jiao threw his oil paper umbrella and flew into a rage. "TSK, she hasn't even gotten married yet? Why are they blabbering when she can date anyone she wants to date?" "Yao?" Situ Yele asked. "Yao, you?" Yi Weiyang had always doted on her, so when he saw her stand and Su chapter away, he felt very depressed. "That's what I meant. If you want to fight, then do it now. I'm hungry, it's time for Luan chapter." Feng Jiao sneered. Without looking at them, she started for the door. Situ Yele was furious in his heart. What did Yao mean by this? Could it be that Yi Weiyang was her first man? Then what did she take Situ Yele for? "Yao, explain yourself." Situ Yele quickly moved his feet and chapter raced after him. "What should I explain? Take your hand away." Feng Jiao's eyes were dyed with frost as he looked at Situ Yele and spoke sternly. In the modern world, the beautiful sleeping men were all part of her desire. Could it be that he had to make her take responsibility? "What, you want me to take responsibility? Or do you want me to take responsibility?" After Feng Jiao's cold eyes swept across Situ Yele, he glanced at Yi Weiyang, crossed his arms and coldly asked them. "I'm a man, of course I'm responsible for you." Yi Weiyang shouted with his usual cold voice. "Yao, we love Ye chapter other. I already had the thought of marrying you. So naturally we should get married. We should fulfill our man's responsibilities towards women, and take responsibility for it." Situ Yele's words were watertight. Look, ancient men are even harder to deal with than candies. After Feng Jiao heard what the two had said, he fell into a complete mess. "About that, I don't need you to take responsibility, or you can be responsible for it. I've already thought about it, and I don't want to get married for now. So please don't follow me anymore." Feng Jiao helplessly shrugged and let out a long sigh. Feng Jiao's words infuriated Situ Yele and Yi Weiyang. They really wanted to split her apart and see if she had the heart to do so. Their eyes were burning with extreme anger, as if she was about to be devoured. Although her words were a bit despicable, she did it for their own good. A seductive and flirtatious girl like her really wasn't suitable for marriage at home. Also, don't follow me anymore. When Feng Jiao saw that they were blocking his path, he used light skill to fly to the carriage in front of the Songhe restaurant. Eldest miss, how did you use the light skill to fly back? Ziyin was shocked when she saw Feng Jiao suddenly land on the carriage. Don't ask, stop those two fools for me. Miss, I'll go to the Liangliang soup shop to see how the decorations are progressing. Seeing the two from behind quickly chapter racing after them, Feng Jiao immediately ordered Ziyin to stop them. Eldest miss, well, all right. Ziyin could only nod his head and nimbly jumped off the carriage. Coincidentally, Situ Yele and Yi Weiyang had brought along their light skill and flew over. Ziyin, where is your young miss? Damn it, when did her light skill become so good? Yi Weiyang asked angrily. Why did Yaoer disappear in the blink of an eye? Mr. Yi, the first miss left early. The eldest young miss was really unkind. She took the carriage and ran away, leaving her to face the two tigers by herself. Ziyin lowered his head as he pondered about how he could escape later. Where did your young miss go? Situ Yele naturally wanted to know where that little girl Feng Jiao had gone to. He had never thought that there would be so many men coveting the girl he liked. There were even people from the martial arts world. This nearly drove him crazy. It seemed that he had to speed up the matter of annulling the engagement. It wasn't easy for him to be tempted. Was it easy for him? Eldest miss left by herself earlier. What business do you have with her? Do you need me to bring a message to our young miss? Please, please let her go. Facing the two of them, she might as well go back and serve this old man with an unpredictable personality. Do you know where she went? Yi Weiyang asked, his handsome face still as cold as ever. He felt extremely bitter in his heart. He had given his first time to a woman he cared for with all his heart, and she actually did not need him to take responsibility for it. Ziyin is a servant. The young miss cannot possibly explain these things to me. Although she said it, the young miss had let him block them both. It must be because the young miss does not want to see them right now. Ziyin, don't lie. Your young miss really didn't tell you. Where did she go now? Situ Yele glared at Yi Weiyang. How dare a mere martial artist fight with him over a lover? Sir Situ, this servant really doesn't know. Before Ziyin went to impersonate someone, he had already understood the personality of the previous Ziyin. So after she gave Su Chapter an answer, Situ Yele and Yi Weiyang did not make things difficult for her. Young masters, if you have no more questions, then I will return to Prime Minister's mansion first. Ziyin lowered his head and bit his lower lip, thinking at this time, with young Miss Light skill, who knows if she could make it to Liangliang Tang's shop. Ziyin was also curious. How could the light skill be used so well in Su Chapter a short period of time, and not even inferior to hers? Could it be that the young miss had an expert guiding her? Then should she report this matter to master? Forget it, you can go back first. Situ Yele waved his hand to indicate that Ziyin could leave. Just as Yi Weiyang was about to leave, he was stopped by Situ Yele. You are not suitable for Yaoer, Situ Yele warned as he tried to persuade her. Could it be that the future prince consort is suitable for Yaoer? Yi Weiyang turned around, his lips expressing his ridicule. You! Situ Yele did not expect him to refute him like this. According to my knowledge, a prince consort of the Nanshao kingdom cannot accept concubines. The smile on Yi Weiyang's face vanished as he coldly snorted. Humph. Situ Yele saw that he was not angry at Yi Weiyang, but was furious at Yi Weiyang. He flung his sleeves and returned to the Songhe restaurant. Yi Weiyang sneered. The woman he wanted to marry, no one can steal it away from him. Feng Jiao sat on the horse carriage and was almost at the Liangliang soup shop, but her heart was still in turmoil. First miss, the #1 soup restaurant in Xianyang is just in front of us. COA chapterman Wan Sanzi's voice came out from outside the carriage curtain. Very well, let's get out of the car and take a look. Feng Jiao replied. and then gently pulled open the curtain of the carriage. Once Feng Jiao got off the carriage, her eyebrows twitch-chaptered. It seemed like someone had locked onto her tracks. Yao, we really know EA chapter other. Xian Yuan how you suddenly appeared in front of Feng Jiao. You followed me? Feng Jiao was very sure. There's no need. Xian Yuan how you shook his head. Then why did you coincidentally appear here as well? Feng Jiao sized him up. He was dressed in white spotless. It's just a coincidence. Don't think too much chapter about it. Xian Yuan how you slowly walked forward and pulled her hand, walking towards the direction of Liangliang's soup store. Xian Yuan how you. Feng Jiao desperately tried to break free from his large hand. Yao, just call me how you next time. Are you not tired from shouting these 4 words? You seem to be having a stoma chapter here. Are you hungry? Xian Yuan how you laughed instead of getting angry. I'm really hungry. Feng Jiao nodded. Since the emperor was big, she would just ignore him. Just thinking that Ziyun better not tell them about her visit to Liangliang's soup hall. Yao, do you see that the interior decorations are almost done? Xian Yuan how you pointed to the inside of the hall with her fair finger. Not bad, but when does the store open? Feng Jiao eased his expression and asked. Let's wait for Blue Festival to open. At the current stage, he was very busy, so he decided to set the date of the opening business for after the end of Blue Festival. Yes, I can. She nodded. Let's go. I'll bring you to the Jade Lake restaurant for Luan chapter. Seeing Feng Jiao's satisfied smile, he laughed and suggested. Is that the Jade Lake restaurant by the Great Jade Lake? Feng Jiao recalled that he mentioned it a few days ago. Right, let's go. I'll carry you and use the light skill. You better hurry up, otherwise, if you starve to death, my heart will a-chapped here for you. What Xian Yuan how you did not say was that after Blue Festival, it would be the 5 mountain poetry meet. From then on, all the chapter rollers who came from different countries gathered at the beautiful Great Jade Lake. However, the 5 mountain poetry meet was jointly organized by the 4 great countries, while some other small countries would send people to participate. The 5 mountain poetry meet was now equivalent to a large-scale talent chapter range market. The top 3 ranks of the competition could be considered as the imperial court officials and make a huge fortune. From then on, those chapter rollers who had been bitterly studying were all looking forward to the opening ceremony of the 5 mountain poetry meet. I really didn't realize that His Highness King of Jing was so good at talking. Feng Jiao nodded and agreed. Since she was lazy, he didn't mind carrying her and flying. So Xian Yuan how you held her up by her waist. Seeing that she was so gentle, his lips formed a brilliant smile. Could it be that she still had him in her heart? Chapter 74 Part 2 Soon, they arrived at the Great Jade Lake. The moist wind blew over, dispelling the heat from their bodies. The lily blossoms in the lake were either beautiful, or blooming or wilting. Nearby the Great Jade Lake was a 3-story building built from bamboo. It was simple and unadorned, and it carried an exquisite and refreshing feeling. This is the Jade Lake restaurant. What did she think of this tea house? But why is business here so good? Right. He raised his eyebrows and smiled lightly. Then with light feet, he landed on the ground and directly walked in front of her. He turned around and glanced at her. How can you not go in with this king? There are a lot of people here. Compared to other tea houses, the business here is Mu chapter better. Feng Jiao muttered softly. Want to know why? He turned around and gently asked as he adjusted the strand of hair on her forehead. Feng Jiao nodded her head. What nonsense, she obviously wanted to know. She did not believe that a lagoon would have so many people to reward it. Besides, the tea house and tavern here did not only have the Jade Lake restaurant. They are all here for the Blue Festival. He explained with a smile. Will there be so many people coming to this crappy festival? Feng Jiao covered her mouth and laughed. Yao, you are wrong. Perhaps to you, the Blue Festival is nothing. But to many people, the Blue Festival can be considered as a holiday that chapter ranges their fates. Moreover, the Blue Festival was held by the 4 great empires' most mysterious and longest-lived clan, the Heilong clan. If he won, he could get the secret to live longer. Or he could even get 1,000 taels of gold. In short, it can be called a dream come true. Xian Yuan Haoyu explained slowly, causing Feng Jiao's heart to be thrown into chaptereos. Feng Jiao thought, then if I win, can I make a wish that I can sleep in a lot of beautiful men, but don't need me to take responsibility? Of course, she would not ask Su chapter whimsical and shocking questions. No wonder so many people came here. Feng Jiao nodded her head, and then sighed. Too bad I promised my father this morning that I wouldn't participate in Blue Festival anymore. Oh right, do you want to participate? Everyone in the royal family will be participating. He smiled back at her. How could she laugh so coquettishly? It almost caused her heart to waver again. Sigh, let's not talk about the Blue Festival. I'm really hungry. Let's go in for Luan chapter first. Feng Jiao held her stoma chapter and said pitifully. The two of them walked into the bustling Jade Lake restaurant. Young master, how many of you? A waiter dressed in blue came up to them with a smile on his face. Just the two of you. Me and her. Xian Yuan Haoyu pointed at himself, and Feng Jiao as he smiled lazily, and took away the eyeballs of everyone in the hall of the Jade Lake restaurant for a moment. The waiter was stunned, and immediately responded. When the waiter looked at Feng Jiao, he felt that she was extremely beautiful, so beautiful that she could topple nations. Waiter, how is it in the main hall? Xian Yuan Haoyu frowned. Xian Yuan Haoyu saw that Feng Jiao did not seem to object. He was puzzled. The hall was so noisy, but she could still casually chaperon an empty seat and sit down. My apologies, sir. The private rooms upstairs have already been booked. Only the location of the main hall is available. After being questioned by Xian Yuan Haoyu, the waiter quickly withdrew his gaze from Feng Jiao's body. I think this place is pretty good too. Look, we're leaning against the lake. It's very cool. Feng Jiao didn't object. She was so hungry that her chapteress was almost two-chaptering her back, but she was still tangled on her position. What do you think, young master? The waiter glanced at Feng Jiao gratefully. What a considerate girl. And she was extremely beautiful, just like a fairy. Hurry up and serve up the dishes. Pick out the best one in your restaurant. When Xian Yuan Haoyu saw the waiter looking at Feng Jiao with that gaze, his expression became extremely displeased. Yes, sir, please wait a moment. The waiter politely laughed, and when he left, he glanced at Feng Jiao from the corner of his eyes. Yao, let's go to another restaurant. Xian Yuan Haoyu only felt that his things were about to be seen by the people around him. Hence he glared at the masters, who were staring at him with amazement. I'm very hungry, I can't bear the torment. Feng Jiao gently shook her head. He was starving her. Now was the time for Luan chapter. So naturally the number of people in the restaurant would be innumerable. At least when Feng Jiao looked at the food on the other people's tables, she had the urge to snatch chapter it away. Yao, why are your eyes like a wolf's? Xian Yuan Haoyu laughed and joked. If you want me to say I'm like a hungry wolf, then just say so? Feng Jiao smiled chapter-armingly. Because the waiter was exceptionally fast in serving the dishes on the table were immediately filled to the brim. Feng Jiao's eyes lit up. She did not care about her own stoma chapter. Even the yellow flower that was hard to swallow was like a rare delicacy in her eyes. Feng Jiao immediately picked up her chapterupsticks and wolfed down her food. In comparison to Feng Jiao's unsightly appearance, Xian Yuan Haoyu had always been a pampered boy. No matter how hungry he was, when he ate, he still looked exceptionally elegant. Immediately, all the people in the restaurant looked at Feng Jiao's terrifying appearance. WA chapter left her in a daze. They all stopped talking, but after recovering, they all shook their heads. Why was the appearance of Su chapter a beautiful woman so ugly? Feng Jiao thought that these people had nothing better to do after eating their fill. She ate hers, chapterupsticks filled with food. Therefore Feng Jiao was unhappy. I say, aren't you being too unkind? A prince like you eats more than me. Feng Jiao's chapterupsticks desperately pressed down on a greasy and tender crystal elbow, as she unhappily scolded. Yao, or this bowl, that plate, and this, it was all eaten by you, although there are still some left. But let me take the last crystal elbow. Xian Yuan Haoyu felt that he himself was also wronged. Was it easy for him? All right. This lady has a large amount, eat it. Feng Jiao reluctantly turned her gaze away from the bright crystal elbow. She scolded Xianyuan Haoyu 100 times in her heart. Just because of a crystal elbow, what was there to be proud of? While Xianyuan Haoyu was eating his crystal elbow, all of his elegance and nobility were completely thrown away. The degree of eating and devouring one's food was even greater than Feng Jiao. Hee. Seeing him act that way, Feng Jiao covered her mouth and laughed, and when Xianyuan Haoyu glared at her, she mischapteriously gave him a grimace, then patted her stomachapter and ungracefully burped. Then, she gracefully took out the cloud silk handkerchief and wiped the corner of her lips. It was only then that Feng Jiao noticed the excessive attention paid to her, and thought, this group of people must have never seen women eating more than she may she. Waiter, pay the bill. Oh no, the bill. Damn, she almost forgot that this was ancient times. A total of 845 taels of silver. The waiter respectfully smiled. He thought that since their clothes were so gorgeous, they should be able to pay for it. Damn, it's so expensive. Your restaurant is robbing us. Shit, she didn't bring that Mu chapter with her when she came out. Pay up. Feng Jiao angrily looked at Xianyuan Haoyu. It was all his fault. He wanted to bring her here to eat. Waiter, here is 1,000 taels. Xianyuan Haoyu took out a silver note that was worth 1,000 gold from his sleeve without even blinking his eyes. She remembered that on her journey to the Suyang, she had encountered 2 assassinations, so she still had some lingering fear in her heart. In a private room on the 2nd floor, Beitang Ziqian was drinking with the Plum Villa's young master Fu Shuo and guessing fist, when suddenly, Beitang Ziqian saw the indecent look on Feng Jiao's face as he swept across the floor below them. A trace of disdain and anger flashed past the bottom of his eyes. This woman really did not take it easy. She had hooked up with Wenxing Yuan and Su Mayan previously, but this time, she was stuck with King of Jing once again. However, why was it that when he looked at all of this, his heart felt extremely uncomfortable, and even felt extremely infuriated? Was it because the weather was too hot? Ziqian, who are you looking at? Fu Shuolua followed his gloomy gaze and looked over. When his gaze made contact with the face of the graceful and chapter-arming woman, a shallow layer of ripples seemed to have been tossed over the lake of his heart by a small stone. Su Chapter, a natural and unassuming woman, was truly rare in this world. What a beautiful girl. Ziqian, do you know her? When Fu Shuolua's gaze made contact with the girl's face, Wu Chapter was smiling like flowers. A faint light flashed in his eyes. He then turned his gaze away and took a deep breath to calm his heart. He asked with a calm tone. Yes, the first young miss of the Prime Minister's mansion, Feng Jiao, is also the #1 beauty of our Nanshao Kingdom. Just 2 months ago, King of Qi Highness delivered the marriage annulment certificate. Beitang Ziqian retracted his gaze and looked towards Fu Shuai, who was eating elegantly. He raised his eyebrows. Why did he ask this? Oh, so it's like that. That's right, Ziqian. When will you fulfill your marriage with my little sister Shui Yan? Fu Shuamao recalled his younger sister Shui Yan's obsession and determination towards the man in front of him. He could not help but feel slightly worried in his heart. Why worry? It was only because Beitang Ziqian was the person he could not see through the most. Of course she will carry it out. Could it be that Shui Yan is worried? A trace of a faint smile flashed through the depths of Beitang Ziqian's deep and unfathomable eyes as he said this in a slow and unhurried manner. Fu Shuolua lightly knitted his good-looking eyebrows. What did Beitang Ziqian mean by that? Could it be that he didn't want to fulfill the engagement between the Fu clan and their Beitang aristocrat clan as soon as possible? Shui Yan is currently waiting to marry into my daughter's heart. You should know what she thinks of you, right? Fu Shui smiled and said in a low voice. Beitang Ziqian smiled and did not speak, his gaze on the white-clothed female downstairs. Seeing Xianyuan Haoyu take out 1,000 silver, Feng Jiao thought. So it turned out that he had already planned for this, causing her to worry so Mu Chapter that she wouldn't be able to pay. Yao, let's go. Xianyuan Haoyu saw that her eyes were still fixated on the remaining plate of food, and frowned as he urged her. Wait, I want to pack these leftovers. Feng Jiao thought of the new pet dog that the begonia garden had. Packaging. He did not understand. What did this mean? Just take the leftovers back to Eric for me to eat. Feng Jiao smiled brightly as she thought of the dog that one Sanzi had asked him to buy. The dog's name was still Eric, the same name as the modern one. Eric. That beast? Xianyuan Haoyu subconsciously asked. Puff, that's a white pet dog. I can't just call it Little White, right? It sounds a little unlucky. Yes. Xianyuan Haoyu responded softly as he rubbed his temples. Forget it, let her be. As long as she wasn't a man-keeper, it was fine. That's right. Have you ever heard of anyone who knows how hard it is to eat? Feng Jiao looked up at him and asked. Xianyuan Haoyu shook his head lightly. He wasn't very clear about it. Even though he was familiar with the 4 books and 5 classics, and was a historical subset, he could still be said to be knowledgeable about astronomy and geography. But he had never heard these words. Su chapter hard work. After Xianyuan Haoyu thought about it, his heart was bright and clear. Yaoer's words had a deeper meaning. Why repeat it again? Feng Jiao didn't think that her words were very philosophical. She only explained to him why she didn't want to waste food. I feel that your words are extremely good. Xianyuan Haoyu smiled gently. Chapter 74 Part 3 The waiter gave the packed food to Feng Jiao. Or a food box. Su chapter heavy words. Feng Jiao picked up a few steps and called out for Xianyuan Haoyu. Xianyuan Haoyu, you have many capable people, help me carry him. After Feng Jiao finished speaking, she gave a sweet smile. How would Xianyuan Haoyu dare to reject them? He only regretted not bringing the servant along. Thanks Feng Jiao felt a lot more relaxed with a face full of smiles. Hey look, in the private room on the 2nd floor, Beitang Ziqian is looking at you. Feng Jiao raised her arm and bent it. Xianyuan Haoyu raised his head and looked in the direction of the 4th room on the 2nd floor. Ziqian, His Highness King of Jing is downstairs. Let's go downstairs to greet him. As Fu Shuerhua said this, he naturally knew Xianyuan Haoyu as well. Therefore he suggested this with a smile. The King of Jing shook his head at us. We don't need to go down. Beitang Ziqian shook his head. Yaoer, let's go. Xianyuan Haoyu saw that she was still looking around and quickly urged her on. Xianyuan Haoyu, who is that man sitting opposite to Beitang Ziqian? Feng Jiao became curious and asked. Young master of Plum Villa, could it be that you don't know him? Xianyuan Haoyu once again looked at Feng Jiao. I don't know. Who knew if Feng Jiao knew her original body, so she didn't. Could he be Fu Shuiyan's brother? When Feng Jiao thought about the beautiful Fu Shuiyan she saw in Autumn Wave stable a few days ago, she felt as if she remembered something. Just by looking from afar, she could tell that the 2 siblings had similar expressions. Yaoer, you can't have fallen for him, right? Xianyuan Haoyu squinted as he looked disdainfully at her. After W chapter his eyes quickly flashed with a dangerous light. How could I fall for him? I don't know him, so don't make it up. Feng Jiao shook her head, walking out of the Jade Lake restaurant ahead of him. Yaoer, are you angry? Xianyuan Haoyu asked worriedly. Feng Jiao shook her head. She couldn't get mad at him just because of a little thing. No, I want to go back to the manor to rest. As a prince, you must be busy too. Feng Jiao laughed. She did not want to leave him alone. Who knew if she would be unlucky enough to encounter another assassination along with him? This was not the 21st century. There were no firearms to dust off medicine. No matter how good her martial arts were, it was not certain that she would be able to escape unscathed. In the era of cold weapons, a chapteriled without kung fu could not afford to be hurt. Alright, this box is quite heavy. I'll send you back to the Prime Minister's mansion. Xianyuan Haoyu wanted to send her back, so the 2 of them spent an additional period of time alone. Oh no, I can do it myself. Feng Jiao shook her head. Alright then, be careful. Xianyuan Haoyu knew that Feng Jiao was an extremely assertive woman, so he did not want to push her to Mu chapter. Thank you for Luan chapter. Feng Jiao gave a gentle smile as she turned around to leave. Unlike the other girls, who looked back every step of the way, she walked away with ease and without a trace of reluctance. Xianyuan Haoyu sighed softly. He didn't know if the Feng Jiao he was looking at was the real her. He always felt that there was another side to her that he was unfamiliar with. It was another quiet night. The moonlight was like water, leaning against the window alone. Along the direction of the flowers blooming in front of him, clear light sprinkled all over the place, as if someone's fingers were caressing the contours of the night. Feng Jiao was bored to death as she flipped through the Sunflower Point Tay chapter Nique in her hands. Her mind was completely clear, thinking that before long, she could also quickly point other people's acupoints. Eldest miss, your midnight snack. Ziyin pushed the door and walked in while carrying a bowl of red date lotus seed soup. All right, let's eat a little for now. Right. Did those two make things difficult for you during the day? Feng Jiao received the blue porcelain bowl depicted with lotus flowers and asked with a smile. No, they only asked where you went. I didn't tell them. Ziyin shook her head and replied. That's good then. There's nothing else to do here. You should go and rest first. I'll go and read some books for a while longer. Feng Jiao had covered up a secret painting of the Spring Palace with the Sunflower Point Tay chapter Nique. So when Ziyin left, her lips curled up into a knowing smile, and she thought, could it be that the young miss is going to marry him? When Ziyin left, it was as Feng Jiao had expected. Yi Weiyang went through the window and looked at the calm Feng Jiao. He had a flash of wonder. Yao was not surprised at all. Why would he appear here at this moment? Stop standing. Sit down and have a cup of tea. Damn. She was in Su chapter a hurry during the day that she forgot to ask him about her mother. Yao, why aren't you surprised at all? Yi Weiyang was very curious, but he was an honest man. Thus he asked without thinking. I knew you would come, so I didn't even close the window. Feng Jiao continued to read This time, she was really reading it. That had already been hidden by her. Yao, shouldn't you give me an explanation for what happened earlier? Seeing her happily eating supper and reading the Spring Palace painting at the same time, the corner of Yi Weiyang's mouth twitch-chaptered. There's nothing to explain. I didn't be naked with him in front of you, so what do you think I should explain? Feng Jiao had always been a shameless person, but this time he refused to admit it no matter what. However, he clearly heard something, but he looked at her calm smile. He didn't know why he couldn't ask, but once he said those words, he would blaspheme her as beautiful as a lotus. Weiyang, do you not believe me? Feng Jiao moved the secret manual of Spring Palace away. Her eyes that were looking forward to seeing everything stared at him, without blinking. His face was as white as jade, his face pink-white. His eyebrows as refined as distant mountains. His eyes as clear as autumn water. His hair as black as ink and as silky silk. His tight black clothes accentuated his creamy jade skin, and his black hair accentuated his pure white jade hairpin. The beauty was suffocating. The beauty of the world was overshadowed by the sun and moon. What a beautiful man! Unfortunately, he began to doubt her. Then she would have to make some kind of decision. Yao, why are you looking at me like that? I just want to hear your explanation. Not that I don't believe you. Yi Weiyang turned her head awkwardly at her gaze. Weiyang, I'm just like a hollow bamboo. I don't have any heart, so don't be serious with me. Feng Jiao did not want to lie to him anymore. So she lifted her hand to remove the rosy threads that were stuck into her hair. The white crystal jade hairpin. Yao, why return it to me? I've already given you this, it's yours. Yi Weiyang did not expect her to be so stubborn. He had already said that he would give her the hairpin. How could she repay him? But I don't think it's necessary. You are already starting to distrust me. Then let's forget about it. This hairpin will be returned to you. Feng Jiao handed the white crystal jade hairpin over to Yi Weiyang's palm and sighed. Feng Jiao glanced at Yi Weiyang from the corner of his eyes, and saw him staring at the white crystal jade hairpin in his palm in a daze. Did he take her seriously? Yao, have you fallen for another man? The question hurt his heart, but Yi Weiyang still asked bitterly. Did he not know where he had lost? If you were to talk about identity, he was not bad. And if you were to talk about chapter actor, he was good too. He could not think of a reason why Yao had to return him the rosy thread. Why do you ask? Feng Jiao didn't think that this honest man would be so meticulous at this point in time. The man in your heart is Situyele, right? You answered me right or wrong. Seeing that she was silent, Yi Weiyang thought that his guess was right. In his fury, He suddenly threw away the white crystal jade hairpin in his hand. So what if I am? So what if I am not? Feng Jiao was shocked by his actions. He was so angry, so merciless, that he broke the rosy thread. Therefore she was also enraged. She did not want to continue being vexed. Heavens, that rosy thread was Su chapter a precious thing. However, was her rejection of him really that unbearable? Yawa, then is the scene of you getting intimate with Situ Yele on the Great Jade Lake true as well? Right? Yi Weiyang wiped a tear from the corner of his eye and asked after taking in a long breath. Whatever you want. When Feng Jiao saw the shattered white crystal jade hairpin on the ground, her heart chaptered suddenly. It was as if what was smashed on the ground wasn't the white crystal jade hairpin, but her heart, and tears silently rolled down her chaptereeks. No, that won't happen. She had done it unintentionally. She would not have feelings for him. Feng Jiao shook her head violently, unwilling to face the fact that she was already tempted. Yao, why did you trample on my feelings for you? Why? Why? Yi Weiyang roared at her. In the darkness of the night, Yi Weiyang's voice sounded extremely frightening. Even Hongmi, who was sleeping, had heard the argument between the two of them. Eldest miss, what happened? Ziyin was naturally clear that it was Yi Weiyang's voice. WHI chapter was why she bravely went to Feng Jiao's room to ask. Don't worry about it. Just pretend you didn't hear anything. Feng Jiao calmly ordered for them to go to sleep. Yes, miss. Ziyin was a smart person. She naturally understood that the young miss did not want others to know about her private matters. When Ziyin returned to her room, she warned Hongmi not to spread the news of a man entering the young miss room late into the night. Hongmi immediately nodded and promised her on her mouth that she would keep the matter a secret. Inside the room, the atmosphere was still awkward and depressing. Feng Jiao looked at the night sky, then raised her head and looked at the still angry Yi Weiyang. Yi Weiyang, I want to go to bed, please leave. There was nothing to explain. Since he wanted to fall, then he wanted to leave. She didn't want to force him either. As for her mother, she would investigate her when she was free, and she wouldn't even bother asking her about it at the moment. The voice that did not contain a single trace of emotion made Yi Weiyang feel as if countless needles were stabbing into his heart. I'm not leaving. You can only be mine. Yi Weiyang's possessiveness was also very strong. Now that he saw her take off the thin layer of emerald water in front of him, as if nothing had happened, a certain place beneath him started to move. Even more so, he who was infuriated, couldn't control himself, and wanted to completely subdue and conquer this wild and unruly woman. As he held her face in his hands, he only felt that she was elegant and refined. She had a lot of chapter arm, eyebrows, eyes, chaptereeks, and lips. Yao, promise me, you only like me as a man, okay? Yi Weiyang had never known that his feelings for her were so deep that he could ignore the future of the clan, and could even abandon his perseverance for many years. Yi Weiyang, is that enough? Feng Jiao looked at him carefully, and thought, since he could not afford to play the game, then she will just treat him as fuck buddy. Chapter 75 Part 1 Yi Weiyang, enough. Yawa. Yi Weiyang's body did not move. A pair of eyes as black as ink stared blankly at Feng Jiao, as serene as a deep pool, as heavy as the sea, causing others to be unable to see the expression in their eyes clearly. Suddenly, he lowered his head and kissed Feng Jiao's soft and beautiful chapterary lips, as both of his hands began to move slowly and elegantly like ink. Yi Weiyang, you want to use the strong one? Feng Jiao realized that something was wrong with Yi Weiyang's eyes, and within the rage, there was an intense desire for possession. So what if I am? I want you to give me a chapteral that belongs to us. Yi Weiyang's beautiful and sexy lips formed a kiss on Feng Jiao's lips, blocking off the words she was about to say. His voice was hoarse and moving. Yi Weiyang, get out of here, the farther the better. Feng Jiao fiercely dodged his lips, and with a swift throw across her shoulder, the unprepared Yi Weiyang fell flat on his face. Anger, depression, shattered mountains and overturned seas swarmed over, like a geyser gushing into his heart. Feng Jiao, since you didn't mean it, then why did you provoke me? You even drugged me, and now you're refusing to acknowledge me. To be interacting with other men behind my back is intolerable. It's intolerable. He roughly tore apart her purple-colored bra with black flowers and moonlight white satin underpants. Looking at Feng Jiao's chapter-arming and small face, a trace of deep sorrow flashed past his eyes. If you have the ability, then take it. Feng Jiao raised her hand and slapped him across the face. No one had ever dared to go against her will and forcefully demand a slap from her. You hit me. Yi Weiyang was stunned for a moment. After recovering, he took off his clothes and pressed the naked body against her delicate body. No, Yi Weiyang, get out of my way, quickly let go of me, or else I will make you suffer. Feng Jiao thought about the pressure point technique that she had just practiced. She didn't mind that Yi Weiyang was her first target. How long have you been practicing? You want to deal with me? Yi Weiyang laughed coldly. He sat on her body and his slender white hands instantly pressed down on her hands, preventing her from moving. Damn it, why can't I move? I don't want to deal with you. I'm so angry I want to kill you. Feng Jiao shook her head and explained to him. She thought this man must be crazy. He had been good to her before and would never be strong to her. At that moment, Feng Jiao saw that he was stirring up her sensitive feelings, giving her a strong impulse to immediately do it with him. Yi Weiyang was so anxious that sweat covered his head, but he did not dare rashly barge in, as his heart was filled with worry for her. He couldn't bear to hurt her. Idiot! If you want it, then hurry up. Helplessly, Feng Jiao's acupoints were sealed first. Other than her mouth being able to speak, it was quite pitiful. Yi Weiyang was very nervous. His handsome face was red from holding in his breath, and after being stimulated by her, he immediately closed his eyes and kissed her tender lips. After the gentle torture, he had finally entered. Feng Jiao quickly sank into a deep sleep. This feeling was very strange. Even she despised herself. How could she have been settled by Yi Weiyang like this? The interior of the room was filled with the fragrance of intertwined love, and it was the most primitive melody that mankind had ever experienced since time immemorial. Behind Wuxian, the two of them fell into a deep sleep from exhaustion. After a night of gentle torture, Feng Jiao woke up once again and opened her sleepy eyes. Yi Weiyang was no longer by her side, so she thought that he had left. However, when she looked at the fragments of the white crystal hairpin on the ground, her heart was still throbbing in pain. She opened her eyes as she looked at the rooftop, cursing Yi Weiyang to death in her heart. She was sure that Yi Weiyang must have been possessed yesterday, to suddenly become a super big gray wolf, and begged for happiness so fiercely. I almost tore her down. Oh no, completely. The brocade blanket on her body covered well as she struggled to pull it off. Her four limbs could move, so she immediately sat up. It was so painful. Lowering her eyes to take a look, she saw that her body was covered in bruise marks all over. It was as if her body had been washed clean, and there was even the fragrance of rose-colored dew on him. At least he has some conscience. Feng Jiao laughed bitterly, but how could she face him? Opening the bed flap, a blinding ray of sunlight shot into the room. It should be noon by then. She climbed down from the bed with great difficulty. He went to the cabinet and took out a new moon-white floor-length flower cage dress to wear on her body. Halfway through, there was a creak as the door was pushed open. Hearing the sound, Feng Jiao's hand that was dressed up suddenly stopped. Looking over, he saw Yi Weiyang dressed in black, elegantly walking over. Yao, I have already told your father about our matters. Yi Weiyang directly said it out loud, not giving her the chapterance to reject him. What? Did he really want to marry her? This was way too fast. It seems like he had an extremely unpleasant conversation with her last night. In the blink of an eye, he had made this decision. No, I won't agree. My dad agreed that it was his business. If you want to marry him, then tell him to marry his other daughter to you. In any case, she was not the only daughter from the father Feng. Yao, do you know what you're saying? Yi Weiyang felt that he was so sad and angry because of her. He must have owed her in his previous life, so other than feeling a little more angry, he didn't hate her at all. In the end, his feelings for her were deep. Weiyang, the relationship between you and I, with Su chapter a hairpin, will never heal again. Feng Jiao put on her clothes and steadily stood in front of him. She drooped her finger and pointed at the shattered white crystal jade hairpin on the ground, and the pain slowly seeped into his internal organs. Feng Jiao, wasn't last night's love to you all non-existent? Are they all fake? Yi Weiyang only knew that the woman he loved wholeheartedly for the first time had never put him in her heart. Under her rage, the spirit serpent sword swayed, as if it wanted to unsheathe and kill Feng Jiao. Yi Weiyang, what, you want to kill me? Feng Jiao straightened her neck. Humph. Yi Weiyang's face alternated between white and green. Yaoer. The footsteps of the father Feng came from outside. Father, what's the matter? Feng Jiao did not even glance at Yi Weiyang, and directly walked to the door. What was Father Feng doing here at this time? Yaoer, when did you and this young master Yi decide to marry Ye chapter other? Feng Wuxia looked at Yi Weiyang carefully. Although he was dressed as a martial artist, his bearing was definitely not ordinary. Dad, don't listen to his nonsense. There's nothing going on between us. Feng Jiao would never admit it, but how could her beautiful life on her own be ruined? Is it really nothing? If there wasn't anything, how did the kiss mark on Yaoer's neck come about? Father, that? Some big mosquito bit this place. Feng Jiao glared fiercely at Yi Weiyang. It was all his fault. Yi Weiyang tightened his grip on the spirit serpent sword. How did he become a big mosquito? Her metaphor really made him spit blood. Sir Yi, since you and Yaoer have already cooked rice in my opinion. Feng Wuxia cursed in his heart. Since he had already ruined his daughter's most precious reputation and integrity, how could he have the face to meet Yaoer's mother in the future? Master, I will take responsibility of Yaoer until the end. Yi Weiyang kept the spirit serpent sword and kneeled down towards Feng Wuxia. Dad, I don't need him to take responsibility. Feng Jiao shook her head with all her might. Her precious youth had just started. Was she about to be buried? No, absolutely not. Yaoer, a girl has to get married no matter what. His chapter actor is still decent, and you already have a physical relationship with him. If you don't marry him, who will want you in the future? Feng Wuxia thought about King of Qi's reason for annulling the marriage, and how she lost her virginity before marriage. Now there was a man who was willing to marry her, so why was she so stubborn? Dad, I don't want it. I just don't want to get married. Do you think I'm wasting food at home? Feng Jiao righteously rejected her coldly with strict words. She didn't want to marry, so no one should even think of making things difficult for her. If you have enough, you can leave now. Feng Jiao coldly voice pushed him aside as her elegant long sleeves drew a beautiful arc in the air. Yaoer, will you participate in Blue Festival's mat chapter that day? He finally asked hopefully. Why do you ask? Feng Jiao curiously turned her head to look at him. She felt that something was amiss today, to the point that the strong sense of belonging had actually disappeared. It was as if he was still that kind and gentle lover of her. Yi Weiyang. Yaoer, you promise me. Will you participate in the Blue Festival? You have to attend it. Alright, it's time for me to leave. You must remember that you have to come to Blue Festival. What Yi Weiyang said made Feng Jiao more and more confused. Hey Yi Weiyang, that Blue Festival is not your wedding ceremony, why must I go? Feng Jiao felt that what he said was getting more and more unfathomable. Yi Weiyang did not say anything, he only looked at her one last time, as though he wanted to engrave her into the depths of his bone marrow, and even into his soul. Only, Yi Weiyang did not say anything, gloomily tapped his toes, and left the begonia garden dejectedly. Chapter 75 Part 2, Eldest Miss. Is Master Yi really going to leave this time? Ziyan passed a cup of tea to Feng Jiao and asked. Yes. It turned out that unknowingly, she already had Yi Weiyang in her heart, but she didn't know why. After he left, she felt that she didn't stubbornly reject his advances last night, the only explanation being that she had fallen for him. What did Yi Weiyang's last sentence mean? In fact, even if he didn't say it, she would have joined the Blue Festival. Ziyan, do you think I'm too heartless? Feng Jiao blew on the green tea leaves floating in the middle of the teacup. Eldest Miss is always warm on the outside, but cold on the inside. Actually, this servant feels that Mr. Yi is infatuated with Eldest Mississippi. He is willing to take responsibility for Eldest Miss, and is indeed a good man. Ziyin carefully considered for a moment before slowly speaking. Ziyin, he's too good. I don't want to hurt him, he should be happy. I will chapterus to bless him. Feng Jiao felt that she had been sleeping more and more recently. She even had an illusion that she would be able to pass through here very soon. If she teleported back, Yi Weiyang would definitely suffer. It would be better to let it a chapter longer than it hurt shorter. Eldest miss, since you also like Mr. Yi, you two can be together. This servant doesn't seem to object to your family background. So why can't you be more brave? Ziyin looked at it from the perspective of a spectator. If I am with him, I will only hurt him even more. It's good to be separated from Ye chapter other. Feng Jiao slowly walked out of the begonia garden with her back facing Ziyin. Ziyin, I'm tired. I want to go inside the house to sleep. Feng Jiao said indifferently, then handed the teacup over to Ziyin, and turned to walk back into the house. Under the blue sky, the yellow tiles lit up the sky. The roof of the palace was decorated with gold and jade tiles, and there were layers of stone platforms. They were like white clouds, blue enamel cranes with candles burning on them. Incense pavilion, incense burner burning sandalwood, copper stove on the balcony, tortoise burning juniper branch chapters. Both sides of the hall smoke curling. The entire main hall, magnificent, beautiful, glorious. This is the main hall of Nanshao Kingdom's imperial palace. Your Majesty, someone has seen the 5-stone powder in the Eastern Palace's Crown Prince Palace. Is it the Crown Prince? The Right Minister Shangguan Qingyan said as he stepped off the stage. Sir Shangguan, are you saying that the 5-stone powder is related to this hall? Although Crown Prince Xianyuan Hao Chapterin heard this, he was not flustered in his heart. His face was still calm as he slowly asked. He was extremely confident, because Old Man Gu would definitely help out on this matter for his own benefit. Your Majesty, this humble subject believes that Sir Shangguan's words are a rumor, and that the rumor is the most untrustworthy. I have forgotten that Your Majesty has a thorough knowledge of the situation. The head of the Internal Affairs Bureau, Gu Zhendong, came out to play. Gu Zhendong glared at Shangguan Qingyan angrily, but his heart was filled with fear. Who exactly had revealed this secret? After arriving at the imperial court, he would ask Exiner. When he noticed the doubtful gaze from the Emperor Xianyuan Kong, Gu Zhendong lowered his head with his eyes lowered, not allowing others to see the glint in his eyes. King of Qi Xianyuan Haofei cast a sidelong glance at Shangguan Qingyan, and he decided to stop when he saw what was good for him. At least, royal father was starting to suspect something. This was a good omen for him. Left Premier Feng Wuxia kept quiet. He did not care about anything else, because the sects are not easy to offend. Prime Minister Feng, what do you think? Xianyuan Kong asked as he took the tea offered by his personal unichapter, Shaoli, and lightly placed it in his mouth. There is no basis for facts, so I cannot jump to conclusions. Feng Wuxia said as he stepped off the shift. Feng Wuxia guessed that since the emperor did not intend to cripple the crown prince right away, it would be better for him to protect himself. As a result, Xianyuan Kong looked at Crown Prince Xianyuan Hao Chapterin with his deep gaze. His feelings were complicated. This Chapterild was good in everything, just that he was too le-chapterous. This weakness was easily used by others, and that was the problem of Jiang Shan's inheritance. From the looks of it now, he had to consider it carefully. The 7th brother's mother was too chapteriming. If the 7th brother took over, and the mother's influence grew, the Xianyuan family would be reduced to nothing. Next, his sharp gaze swept across his other 2 sons, 4th and 9th. Regardless of appearance or talent, these 2 sons of his were very mu chapter in his favor. However, 4th and 7th brother were too cold-hearted, and 7th brother's birth mother's background was too low. Xianyuan Haoyun glanced at 4th and 9th brother, and a hint of shock flashed past his heart. If these 2 people seemed to have some sort of powerful undercurrent flowing within them, it seemed that there were other factors that had led to this. King of Qin Xianyuan Haohan and King of Jing Xianyuan Haoyu's aura was extremely powerful. They looked at Ye chapter other, and Arye chapter to stalemate. They had always been hiding their strength, so they decided to let the crown prince and 7th brother fight in front of their royal father. Suddenly, Xianyuan Kong seemed to have thought of something and asked Xianyuan Haofei with some concern. Fei, I heard your mother say that your mental state hasn't been working well recently, is this true? Reporting to Imperial Father, your son took a cold bath a few days ago, so I caught a cold. Yesterday the Imperial physician had a diagnosis, so this son is fine now. King of Qi was shocked. Could it be that Royal Father knew that he was infected by disease? It's good that you're fine. I'm tired. If you're fine, then all of you can leave. Xianyuan Kong said once and then yawned. A song will come, and there will be no retreat. Xianyuan Kang's personal attendant Little Li raised his hand and flicked the white whisk as he shouted in a duck's voice. After leaving the imperial court, Xianyuan Haoyu remembered Feng Jiao that he missed. At that moment he had the urge to return home like an arrow. He wished that he could grow a pair of wings on his back, and that way he could quickly fly to his side. Ninth brother, you left so fast. Could it be that you have acquired a beautiful woman? Do you really want to go back and accept this beauty's favor? Crown Prince Xianyuan Haochapteran, who was dressed in bright yellow silk clothes, mocked him. Ninth brother, is it really as Crown Prince said? Old 18 Xianyuan Haoyun turned his head around, and his eyes flashed. He looked at Xianyuan Haoyu and asked. King of Qin Xianyuan Haohan shot a cold glance at Xianyuan Haoyu, and did not add in the narration. He only clenchaptered his fist behind him, and moved away with a slight step, as if the words that they had said had nothing to do with him. The king of Jing looked at Xianyuan Haohan's figure that gradually moved further and further away, and a hint of worry flashed past his heart. Just because he heard that fourth brother gave the jade qilin to Feng Jiao, did that mean that fourth brother was also interested in Feng Jiao? Originally, he could have ignored this matter. However, the matter of fourth brother going to Prime Minister's mansion with seventh brother to give Feng Jiao a betrothal gift, he had to believe. Haha, don't listen to Crown Prince brother's wild guesses, this is impossible. Xianyuan Haoyu smiled and shook his head. He thought that if Yaoer was really willing to wait for him like that, he would be so happy that he would be the same as an idiot. In the next second, these people were even more terrifying than their enemies. After Xianyuan Haofei separated from the crown prince and the others, he went to her palace, where her mother lived. Fei, Imperial concubine Duan looked at her son Xianyuan Haofei, who was standing with his hands behind his back. Mother, in the assembly today, the incident with the crown prince was ignored by royal father. Xianyuan Haofei angrily smashed a silver spring butterfly's cup. Fei, it's better to not put up with it. Imperial concubine Duan thought for a while, then gently persuaded. Mother is right, I am just tired. Xianyuan Haofei opened his robes and sat down. Mother, little sister Lingxi's body is better now. I haven't seen her for a few days. He suddenly thought of the Xianyuan Lingxi who was hurt by his emotions. Don't mention her. That Chapterilde is a stubborn person. Did not have any intentions to bother her. But she is still so persistent, truly a foolish Chapterilde. When Imperial concubine Duan thought of Xianyuan Lingxi, she felt a little disappointed. Oh right, what happened to your secondary wife? You haven't come to pay respects to me in a long time? Imperial concubine Duan also sat down, holding a cup of flowery tea. She took 2 sips and asked. Forbidden foot. He nodded his head, meaning that he would go see Lingxi's little sister later. As for her mentioning Feng Jiqiong, a trace of malice flashed past his eyes. And as for her, a trace of jealousy flashed across his eyes. He was currently sick, how to cuddle with the beauties in the backyard. And even when he was with her, he only hugged her, not daring to take a step further. This disease would not be cured, but it would spread, so he didn't dare be careless. Why is it forbidden? When Imperial concubine Duan thought of Feng Jiqiong, that kind of delicate woman, she could be considered to be infatuated with Fei. Your son felt that she was too pampered and proud, so I placed her under house arrest to give her a warning. Xianyuan Haofei said while avoiding the issue. After all, she represents the power of the mighty heavenly castle. You should know your limits. Imperial concubine Duan's expression turned gloomy. Suddenly her expression turned gentle as she advised. Mother, the scented tea here is so delicious. I have never tasted it before. Xianyuan Haofei praised after drinking a few mouthfuls. He asked someone to buy it from a restaurant outside the palace. The taste isn't bad, right? Imperial concubine Duan smiled in satisfaction. She had always had exquisite things in the Guanju Palace, so the emperor would often come to the Guanju Palace to talk with her. Mother, do you know which chapter restaurant it is? Xianyuan Haofei heard and asked casually. Suha House, there are still some orange tarts here that are limited for sale. You must have a taste. Imperial concubine Duan extended her slender fingers, her long golden fingers drawing a beautiful arc in the air, pointing at the 8 orange-colored egg tarts that were neatly placed on the emerald glass plate, as she smiled and said. As he looked at Su Chapter beautiful and delicate food, his mind couldn't help but think of Feng Jiao. After being slightly stunned for a moment, he furiously picked up an orange-colored egg tart and gulped it down his mouth. As expected, it was as sweet and tender, sweet as her chapterary lips. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.